All right. Well, hey, welcome everyone. This is Ship Show. Today we are talking about hybrid ships. With me in the studio today is Mr. Skada. Skada, say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
As normal, Skada, I've got one of these slides here where we have metrics about the
Yeah, so there's 10 hybrid ships now.
Yeah, I'm adjusting.
What are the copy pastas? Is that like Kearsarge B and the gold Chikuma?
Yep, those are the two I was calling as Chikuma II Golden or Chikuma II Golden. And then of course we've got the Kearsarge B was the other. So 12, I guess, total in the game. Assuming I didn't miss one, but I think we got
Chikuma II Golden is barely in the game. That's like CCs and like one guy who got one out of the Wishing Well event have that. That's
not very many.
I haven't looked up the stats on Chikuma II Golden, but I'm guessing the play count on it is low. Low.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
And most hybrids have low play count, so it's probably special in that regard, as it's a low play count.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You're saying it's the lowest of the low, really, is what you're
I would think. Yeah. I mean, just nobody has it.
Yeah. I've played mine like 5 times, and I feel guilty playing it because I got it for CC tomfoolery.
If you have it, like, and you wanted to play Chikuma, you should only play that one. Just because,
exclusively play.
Yeah, like why not? Like
the gold AK-47 from Call of Duty of Chikumas. Yeah. Black Mamba Jamba in chat says, I've seen one ever, which is, I think, probably true. I think a lot of players just don't see them. And the only like non-volunteers, non-CC types that have them are probably, as you said, it's a couple of like rich guys, like the Sultan of Brunei, I think has one. And like maybe the Queen or the now King of England, excuse me.
We have an old friend of the show, Malarkey. I bet he has it. He probably because he's like I think he has he's like the ultimate collector. He's a super collector.
Yeah.
And like I think he got it back then when Wishing Well happened and bemoaned how expensive it was to try to get, because it was not, there was like, I don't know if there was a mercy rule on it. It was just like dump money into a thing. And
I don't remember if there was a mercy rule or not, but I do know that it was just literally, it was like I mean, they didn't model it as a slot machine in the game, but that's basically what it was. And when you lost, they gave you tokens to try again. So it kind of was this perpetual motion machine of random loot boxes.
This is a bizarre conversation we've got on here.
Yeah, it is a little bit. Anyway. So let me take a look at what we got. So we got 10 hybrids in the game, 2 copy pastas. We'll ignore those for the moment. Most of our hybrids are battleships. If you look at the classes little section, that little table on the left, 5 battleships, 4 cruisers, all cruisers. I think I did my math here correctly, but all of the cruisers that are hybrids are heavy cruisers. And then we have 1 DD. So no light cruiser hybrids, which I thought was interesting. Maybe because light cruisers don't have the reload time. I don't know. We can speculate on that a little bit, I guess. If we look at the countries, the USA has a lot, partly because of the tech tree branch of the battleship line they have. They've got an 8, 9, 10, which we'll talk about, leading up to the Louisiana. And the USSR has 1 in Komissar, which we'll get to. Hildebrand just came out for Germany, so it's their first hybrid, and that's obviously really current thing. And then Japan has a bunch, and Japan historically actually built some of the ships that we're going to talk about.
Those are like the only ones that are like real steel, like and I guess Halford.
Yeah, Halford was real, but Halford launched 1 plane for scouting, not 4 planes for attacking. That said, it is a real boat. It really did have a catapult on it, and then I'd say that it counts for real steel in that way. And then for type, we have 3 tech tree ships: a steel ship, 2 doubloon ships, and 2 coal ships. Of course, you can buy the coal ships for doubloons too. Kearsarge, for example, 19,300 doubloons. But if you can get it for coal, you just should. If you're going to look for a Kearsarge, we'll talk about that as we get going in. So that's kind of just like the basics. Normally I have something on here that says, if you buy all of these, it will cost you this much. But because it was across multiple currencies, I just didn't bother to do that this time. And there's not so many ships. So I think that's something people can look up. As always with a ship show episode, guys, if you're watching this live on Twitch or if you're in the comments section on YouTube, throw us your comments and questions. If you're live, we can try to answer them here or at least respond to them. We do know that there are people who have some specific emotions about hybrids right now. So if you're feeling a little spicy about hybrids, maybe try to be chill about it. We're happy to answer any real questions, but if you're just going to throw hate and discontent into the chat, we'll try to moderate you real quick. So just be chill about that. We are talking about these ships, their place in the game, whether or not they're particularly adored by all players. They are in the game, much like other classes that people have troubles with, carriers, submarines, those kinds of things, even destroyers for some players. So they're here to stay. And so what we're really going to try to focus on a little bit is, what are these ships about? Are these ships as they're released, are they fun to play? And we'll talk a little bit about that. I also, Skada, I mentioned to you earlier, I have 3 little question placards that I've made so that we can talk about. They're just little, like, maybe conversation prompts, and we'll hit those up when we get to the end. I don't think they'll be long conversations. One of those questions is, if we could only take 3 home, what 3 would we take? And we'll save that conversation for the end. But
I do. I know
ahead.
generally on Ship Show we don't like lean in like with heavy opinion on, like when we do one for coal, we don't be like, this is the only coal boat you should get, it's S tier. We're not really about that. But I do think it might be worthwhile at the top here to take a few minutes and just say, like what do you think? Like what was your feeling when hybrids were first introduced? Because the first one was what, Issei?
Issei was the first one, so tier 6 Japanese battleship.
Like
yeah.
What did you think when they're first introduced? And how do you feel about their existence like now? I think it's fair for us to kind of talk about that without, if everybody's been so well, not everybody. Let's be clear. They sold a ton of Hildebrands this month.
Yes.
There's a ton of people saying, "Oh, I got it on my first crate on accident. I didn't know." And then you go look, and they played it like 40 times.
Yeah,
And that's fine. Maybe they did, and they just found that it was fun to play, or they liked playing it. But ultimately, I think it's fair to say, like, what is your what is the back of the box opinion on these? Like, what did you think when Issei first got introduced, and how do you feel about them now as they continue to kind of add them?
Yeah, I think that's interesting to kind of ponder. When Issei first came out, I had as is often my reaction when a new kind of thing comes to World of Warships, I'm always like, oh, that's interesting. I want to see how that plays out, right? And I remember thinking that Issei was going to be kind of neat. I played Issei. I played Issei a bunch when I first got it. I think I have a reasonable number of battles in that ship, and I found that I thought it was a pretty poor battleship, but really easy to hit stuff with aircraft. And I had this weird theory at the time where I was like, is this just like a gateway drug to get people to try aircraft carriers, right? I don't actually think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a problem at all, right? I played an aircraft carrier early on the stream, not selected by me, but selected for me, and I enjoyed the battle. It was actually a lot of fun. So I think, should people play aircraft carriers if they want to? Absolutely. Is this the kind of thing that might get somebody to try an aircraft carrier, or at least try the mechanics of aircraft carriers to play them? I do think that's a part of, at least at the time, that was a part of what I thought. I think hybrids now are kind of odd. I think they're more about giving wargaming more options for ways to build quirky ships, because there's hundreds of ships in the game and they have to keep filling in, playstyle gaps around the tech trees and the premium trees, if you will. So I think now it's a lot about filling that in and giving players just more options. What do you think?
I agree. Like when Issei came out, I think we thought, oh, that's interesting. And I didn't know, I'm a history buff. That always draws, that's part of the draw for this game. But I wasn't really aware that like that was a real thing. That like, and that's when I learned, like, oh, the Japanese Navy tried a bunch of like weird stuff like this. And that's when I learned, oh, well, then like Tone and like like Chikuma, like they call it Chikuma II in the game because there's a low tier Chikuma, but like these are real things, and I thought that's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
They really existed, and so like the way they
Was
at least
Chikuma
the
real
way
too? I know Tone
yeah
was. Chikuma was also real. Okay,
yeah,
I
and
knew
so
it was a
like
real
the
ship. I just didn't know if it was a
yeah,
hybrid.
and so the way they like operate, I mean, sure, you got to set aside like the way the squadrons and the mechanics of the planes, right? Because obviously the game's historically based arcade style game, right? So we don't want to get, well, they wouldn't have been able to launch that plane and how would they recover it, and they keep all that stuff. Okay, it is what it is. So there's the mechanics, but like those ships have whatever limitations they have and whatever things have been levied on them to make them video game ships. But again, like Tony's got a bunch of turrets and Chikuma's got a bunch of turrets, but there's nothing in the back because of the flight stuff. And I think as they progress through these ideas, I remember when like they were going to do Kearsarge, it was like, okay, well, this was kind of like an idea that like the Soviets and wanted the Americans to build them a thing, but there was some like gobbledygook historical stuff behind that. And then you got Kearsarge, right? And Kearsarge it wasn't real. And then when you start looking at the ones that aren't real, they start to feel I don't want to say overpowered, but they start to feel like they're way more playable. And I think we'll get into that as we talk about
I was
them.
going to say, I feel like we're almost getting into the conversation.
Yeah,
with the
no, I
ships,
think
so
we'll get into it as
but
we talk about them. But I feel like, if you go back to when Issei came out, like it's not that great. And it has these limitations. And they're kind of like mechanical limitations that were because it was like a real thing. And like the design of it left it, like the rear turret situation. And then you look at like the ones that are napkin ships or whatever.
Yeah.
And oh no, they got like turrets everywhere and they all go in every angle, but it also, you can also do all this stuff. And so I think that might be part of they might internally need to look at what they're doing with the designs of these, because they're not going to stop making them. There's a market for them.
Yeah.
As much as Reddit and people on YouTube and sure folks on Twitch don't want to see these in game, or at least the vocal minority or whatever they are. Maybe it's a vocal majority, but they're being sold and they exist.
And Hildebrand was incredibly popular. If most people hated hybrids, I don't think we would have seen 6 of those in every game for a week there, right? Like there are a lot of people who are interested in hybrids. Now that always dies down when something takes the game by storm. We're not going to see Hildebrands like that later. So all of the frustration and the feelings we had at that moment, that's going to not be a big deal in a month,
And again, it's really kind of the only one that I can remember. Kearsarge probably when it was available, because Kearsarge was like a coal ship, right?
Yeah.
So like I kind of remember there was probably games
when
Kearsarge first came out where you'd see like multiple Kearsarge.
Yeah.
But like Hildebrand's really like, even when Komissar came out, like you didn't see multiples because of the currency, right?
Right.
But with Hildebrand, you had the perfect storm for wargaming of it being a German ship, and then you had you could whale for it, which tends to be a thing that people who love the era will whale for.
I'll put the air quotes on the screen for you.
Being German ships, right? I understand in the old Mural Labri game they have a like they have like a hybrid game. They're also still doing hybrids. They have some dockyard ships, blah blah blah. Anyway, so like they know that there's an interest in
Donnie.
At least to sell them.
Yeah.
But then, after a month or so, the next new thing comes out, the whales go by that. Right. And it turns into a thing you don't see as often because there's freaking like 700 ships.
Do you remember Iparanga? That was a big deal, and it still is. It's still a great boat, and we'll see how long it takes for that to.
You're gonna see, Iparangas, and then you've seen so many people whale into Los Andes and Libertad, and then next month when those come out, you're gonna see a lot of them, and then a month later when Wargaming nerfs them, you'll stop seeing them as much because they've sold all they could.
They'll be onto them, and people will go back to their favorite boats, right? When new stuff comes out that I'm stoked about,
all Shimikazes and Des Moines.
Like I love Lucian, but I don't remember the last time I played it, right? Like Lucian came out last year, and it was all I played for a long time. I just played Lucian, and now I'm chilling, and I'll get back to it, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
Like it was like my favorite, and that happens to everybody. So we always have these big rashes of things that come out, but it is kind of what it is.
Yeah.
I think.
But I mean, like I thought Issei was a weird curiosity when it came out. We played it a little bit.
Yeah.
We did some weird divisions, and we were like, "Oh, this is fun."
I remember at least one night where we did some triple Issei divisions, and
and
the
lost
thing about
games.
And lost to games. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to go back and hit this point that I made earlier because I don't think I didn't follow up with it. But, one of the things about Issei is it's so easy to land torpedoes in Issei. And they do like no damage, right? It's like chucking a Nerf bat at somebody. But it's so easy to land torpedoes. I swear that it's just like a nice, easy way to go. Do I like launching torpedoes and stuff from airplanes? Yeah, I kind of do. Because look at all these hits I get. I didn't get a lot of damage, but that's kind of fun or whatever. And I love that about Issei, actually. Even though Issei is not that great a ship. I have a YouTube video on my channel where I go into a battle in my Issei and I make a whole bunch of Highlander jokes about how there can only be one because I kill 3 enemy Isseis on the enemy team or whatever. It's just like a live stream.
Just switch to the Issei slide at this point. Like, is Issei first? Should we just go to that slide?
I'm using the Selectomatic. They're not in order. Let's just go to our ships. You're right. We should do that. So here we've got the Selectomatic. We're just going to pick these ships in a random order. So I even don't know what one's coming up next. So
I'm going to lose all historical context on as they were introduced,
way,
which is my thesis on this, but that's fine.
Well, that may destroy your thesis statement a little bit because of the technical limitations. We're going to start with Komissar, actually. Okay. This is a boat you really like.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you kick this one off. Why don't you tell us a little bit just give us a ship overview, and then we'll talk a little bit about Komissar in World of Warships after that.
Komissar is a Tier 10 Soviet cruiser. It has 240 millimeter guns, 12 of them, with really good range, like 18, 19 off the top of my head. Shoots really far. And what you can't see in this delightful picture is it goes on forever because way back at the back of the mill end store, there's a carpet mill outlet back there where they launch planes, and it launches rocket planes, little squadron of rocket planes. I think they're basically like the Nakhimov rocket planes.
I think that's correct. Yeah, they're Nakhimov rockets.
Which is kind of unique because a lot of the hybrids, like this is a Tier 10 cruiser, and sometimes you'll see they launch like a Tier 8 plane, and this launches like a Tier 10 plane. And these rocket planes hit like a truck. They don't recycle super fast, but they're totally useful. Last Tier 10 Clans season was when this ship came out. It's available for steel. And I played this a fair amount on our clans team because we would use those planes for spotting, and I like my take on this. And it has like torpedoes. This has hydros. It has like everything but the kitchen sink. It just doesn't have radar.
Torpedoes are 10-kilometer torpedoes. Yeah. You are correct. 240 millimeter guns. There's 12 of those on this ship, which is no small
It has no armor.
No armor whatsoever. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, it is made of cray paper. It has no armor, but it plays. We've talked about this many times. I love this cruiser.
Yeah,
and I wish it while I don't care that it's a hybrid, I would love it if it wasn't.
It's still good without the
you chop the back off, and it was this like crazy Russian long range, not radar with these guns. The guns are so good on it. I like playing it that way. It's like playing Kirov. Like if you know the Tier 5 Kirov, if you're a Kirov enjoyer, it plays to me like that.
Yeah.
That kind of boat, but at Tier 10, and it, you can angle and you can get away with some stuff in it. The problem with it is being a hybrid is it's so big. It's just so long. That even when you're trying to angle away and stuff, you're gonna take all kinds of crazy pen damage into the back of this thing because it just goes on forever where it launches.
Gamer turns are hard because of how long the ship is. There's just a lot of ship. It has an
exposed citadel. Yeah. It takes your gamer turns. You just eat it. You just take citadels. But I've had a ton of fun games in this in randoms back when it came out and in. Some fun games and clans, and I just enjoy playing it. And it's funny because I think it's like a really powerful cruiser that has the plane thing, right?
Yeah. think
I don't think of it as like as a really mediocre carrier that also is a cruiser up front. Like I think
right.
of it as a cruiser that has these planes in the back.
Yeah, this one is definitely the kind of cruiser that, like you said, it doesn't need the planes to be amazing. And it's the kind of cruiser that somebody who isn't interested in hybrids might still consider getting.
Yeah.
That's an easy recommendation. Like if somebody's like, "What cruiser should I get from the coal store or the steel store?" I'll be like, "Well, go get your coal and steel ships that you can use in clan battles if you do that." And then when you're done with that, like Komissar, and actually that's a question I want to ask you too. Komissar is another great choice too. Here's my question: do you think in 2 or 3 seasons of Tier 10 clan battles, people will still play Komissar if it's not outlawed? I don't know if it'll still be, or if everyone's going to go back to their old standbys.
Everybody goes back to whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
I
think
don't think
I
it's
don't
like
think it
a
has staying
Napoli.
power. Yeah.
It's been so long since something entered the meta in clans, and this is kind of an offshoot conversation, but
We don't
like
have to go way down this road. I
yeah,
just
but
thought it was
like
interesting to bring
if
up.
I really think back to like when did something enter the meta at tier 10 clans and stick there, that's Napoli. Like it
Mhm.
really showed up and is wedged in there. Like I don't
Yeah.
think Commissar is going to be that, but you know, you never know.
Yeah. I think I
I don't
agree.
think it'll be that. You know, they may block it too, just out of hand. They've been doing that with hybrids lately, in competitive. So
But
what I was gonna
they've allowed Tone in the tier 8 clan battles both seasons, which is interesting.
they
We can come to
have,
that
yeah.
later, but
Yeah, you know, and I think I just enjoy playing the ship as a cruiser. I'm not the biggest fan of the tier 10 Soviet cruisers. I do not enjoy playing Petropavlovsk. I play it fine, like whatever. I don't enjoy playing it a ton. I don't enjoy Moskva. Um, I don't think Sevastopol is worth the effort.
I
Or
like that boat, but I know
Sevastopol
you
or
don't.
whatever it's
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
I think this personally is my favorite tier 10 Russian cruiser to play. I think
Oh,
it's
we
just I have
definitely. Let me just tell you, this is your
yeah.
favorite tier 10
Yeah.
Russian crew. I'll just
Yeah,
tell you if you
I
don't
just
know.
I have fun playing it, and I accept the fact that it'll
Yeah.
get trucked. Sometimes you just get smashed in it. But I enjoy the dickens out of playing it, and I think it's a lot of fun.
The Dickens.
You know,
I like it.
and it's a free ship ostensibly if you consider steel as a free currency. So
Yeah. It's a hard to get
yeah.
currency, but it doesn't cost you any money. Right. That's true. Yeah, Commissar is fantastic. I didn't know if I know you liked it, and I knew you were like excited when you got it, right? And I
Yeah.
got it, I think, a little bit after you, and I think I was waiting on a coupon or something, but I got it, and I found that I liked it too. I didn't immediately notice the bad armor because I had that weird Clyde good luck for the first game or 3, and I was like, I don't know, the armor seems okay, and then like the very next battle, I experienced the paper thin armor. So that is one thing you've got to be really cognizant of with this boat. The guns are great, 240s. Let's talk about how big those are. That's bigger than
Guns
what
are
we're
amazing.
thinking. They're amazing. They're fast shells. They just do damage. You can take
Yeah.
angled citadels out of your enemy cruisers. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the HE smashes the bejesus out
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
It's really good, and they're accurate, and they're Russian ballistics or Soviet ballistics, so they're easy to use at range, and the reload's not epic, but it's 12 240s for Pete's sake. Like,
And the concealment
um,
is 11.5
yeah,
in my build,
it's
at
like
least.
sneaky.
So like
Yeah.
what? Like for a boat
Yeah.
that's 12, 12, Minnesotas long or
Yeah,
whatever.
12 huge guns, and it
12
has 12 huge
Vermont's
guns,
long.
low concealment, 10
Yeah.
kilometer torps, like 5 kilometer hydros. He has a heal and all that stuff. Oh, and like if you want to be then you can fly around the planes, and again, like, let's be clear, like if you've played Nakamov or against a Nakamov, or if you've played Komissar against a Komissar, like if you can land these rocket hits, they crush stuff. Like they're not
Yeah,
great for shooting
yeah.
it like a destroyer because they've done away with that with rockets in general. But like, you can
Yeah,
sit
that's
in
hard.
this thing, angled away, like, kiting cruiser, and pop fireballs at people, light a fire on a battleship, get him another one, whatever. Maybe he goes dark. Maybe he puts out his fires and goes dark. Then you just fly over there with those jerk planes, and you pump 12,000 to 15,000 damage in a rocket salvo into a superstructure, and he catches on fire again. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Like,
It's pretty nasty.
It's very fun. I enjoy it a lot. It's fun to play.
Betaflex says, do the shells have short fuse like the Super Petros guns? No,
I don't think so.
They're standard fuse time, but they do have a slightly improved ricochet angle. So ricochet angles basically most ships are 45 to 60 degrees. That 45 is where the ricochets will begin, and 60 degrees they're guaranteed. On Komissar, it's 50 to 65 degrees. So the range isn't small or anything. They just moved it higher. So you'll get more pens at more of the lower angles, basically. And that does help out. You will find yourself getting some angled pens and even angled citadels on the right targets, which is great. But yeah, the impact speed of the shells is just miles ahead of anybody else. Like, it's just silly how good the guns are. And again, Komissar's a steel ship. How much does she cost for steel? Do we remember?
Like 30,000. I don't know. Like,
I think it's like 30 or maybe 31. I'll go look real quick. But
what I would ask, I think the one thing I want to ask on each of these, and I'll throw this
okay. Ooh, Skada has a question, everyone. Go.
One thing I want to ask on each of these is Komissar comes out.
Okay.
Do you think when Komissar comes out, Komissar is considered bad for the game?
I'm a bad person to ask that because I usually don't think things are bad for the game. Like, I usually go, oh, the game has changed. What do I need to do to play the new game? That's just
a fair opinion.
That's Clyde's attitude, right? That's why fair. I still love World Warships the way I do, because I have that attitude. That said, I think if I look at the things that people say are bad for the game, I don't think Komissar is any of those things, because it's a cruiser. It has a huge weakness in that it's enormous and it's not very well armored. I think it has good guns, like a lot of lighter armored cruisers have. And I don't think the planes are that big a deal. So like in this boat, I don't know. I wouldn't say that at all. I would say Komissar's fine.
And it got thrust right into competitive, and was like a lot of clans were using it. Good, bad, and indifferent clans were using it.
Sure.
And I don't remember a fervor at the time being like, oh, this thing's bad for the game because planes and blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's because the planes don't reload quick enough.
Maybe.
I don't know. But this one I don't remember giving vibes of, oh, the end of the world.
So. Yeah. No, I don't feel like we got that. And part of the reason why we didn't get that attitude is because it's a steel ship. And you couldn't just throw money into the machine to get it out, or coal, which are two things that people tend to have a lot of. If this was a coal ship, you might have seen some spice about it, because I think we would have seen more out in the game. Steel tends to regulate people's access to ships, and that's the point of steel, right? I know some people are like, why can't I have all the boats? Well, you have to do the things to get the boats. You'll hear Boggsy and Wisconsin ask this question on the NA stream about every other week, right? Like, well, we want you to do the things that you get the steel so you can get the steel boats, right? And players are like, I don't want to do that. I want to play ops or whatever their favorite mode is. And I totally respect that, and that's fine. It just means that some of the content's going to be harder for you to get, right? And so, like, again, Komissar, a little harder to get because it's steel. I think over time we'll see more of them filter into the game, but because it comes in slowly, whereas with Hildebrand, not to spoil the Hildebrand conversation, it came in so fast that players, started to go to Reddit to riot, So no, I think Komissar is a fine addition to the game. I think she's a fun ship to play. I think if you have the steel and you've got a coupon ready to go, pick it up. This is an easy recommendation for me. Like you said, we don't really go S tier and bottom tier or good or whatever, but I like Komissar. I think she's fun and she's unique.
It's fun to play.
Yeah. That might be it on Komissar, man. Any final thoughts on this one?
No. We comments in chat that if you use the planes as a spotting plane, opponents will hate you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Concur.
That's a great comment.
And also, because you have them, you should use them to spot destroyers. Like, that's why planes are in the game, to counter destroyers.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm sorry that destroyer, especially torpedo destroyer players with invisible low concealment, don't like being spotted, but that's a mechanic that they put in the game to counter them.
Yeah. I do like Leviathan raises his hand and it feels safe in this space to say, I have been reported many times for using my planes to do the thing they're for,
Yeah. Specifically in clans, I sat in my planes for what felt like 10 minutes, circling over the top of a low concealed destroyer.
Yeah, we traded your damage for your spotting that season.
Yeah.
And some games it was really amazing, and some games it wasn't as great. But like
some games it wasn't.
You know, it was a totally fair thing to do. That's the mechanic, right? And so that's the thing, is like when a thing changes in World of Warships, then you're supposed to go, oh, cool, a new challenge. And sometimes we don't like the new challenge. Sometimes I don't like being pursued by 2 division submarines in a 21 knot battleship. I get it. That's frustrating. But like, that's the new challenge. That is World of Warships at that point.
I can tell you personally.
We just lost half our viewership by saying that, by the way.
I know. I can tell you personally. I don't like dropping into a random right now between tier 8 and tier 10, and there always being a Jaeger on the other team that is invisible.
No,
not
kidding.
My favorite thing in the game either.
I'm struggling with the Jaegers, the Jaeger bomb that happened when those went into coal store.
A coal boat. It's just out there everywhere. It's good though because the Timmermains now have 2 things they can play. It's exciting.
Yeah. Chat seems to agree about the Jaegers, which is pretty funny.
It gets old. It gets old quick. I wish as I'm playing things that aren't hybrids and don't have radar, I sure wish. Man, I wish I was in a hybrid right now or had radar so I could spot that darn Jaeger that's been looking at me forever.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Mr. Patrick says, will the hybrid planes be getting the same CV spotting rework as well? We don't know now, Mr. Patrick. They have talked about what they're doing for CVs. The CCs, including myself, have asked this question, and Wargaming has said we don't have that answer for you yet. So I would presume the answer will be yes, but I don't know. I want to make that very clear.
This isn't even a thing where I'm like, I can't talk about an NDA testy guy. No idea.
Nobody knows. I don't think at this point. Wargaming probably has some ideas, but it's all good. And then Azura says, spent a few thousand on this game. I play a lot less. And I play CVs and subs. There you go. Right. I mean, the thing is the game will change for you. I've played this game for 9 years. You've played 5-6 years, Skada, and it's different. I play battleship. I never used to play battleships. I play battleships now. Like I've changed and I've done different things, and carriers didn't used to be a thing. They're everywhere now, right? Like,
I play pretty much everything. I don't like playing carriers a ton because my general reason for not liking playing carriers a ton is that the matches take too long because you're always there. You're always for the full length of the match. So like if you win, that's fine because it's probably shorter. But if it's a loss, it's a long loss unless you throw away your ship. So I don't like carriers for that. And then I don't like playing submarines because I don't enjoy the mechanics. They just don't interest me. But I play, I've played them, but it's not a thing that I'm like, I want to go play that.
Yeah. And again, you're going to have your proclivities and your choices and your preferences. That's the thing. I think this conversation is going to keep getting had. So let's jump to our next ship here.
Sure.
Which is, Halford. And I'd like to hand the microphone to Betaflex to tell us all about Halford, who's in the audience today. Betaflex, of course, is a member of the Clyde Plays Discord and in this chat right now. He's a big Halford fan and a big hybrid fan in general. After Betaflex, I don't know why you decided to go all in on hybrids, but I remember one day you were like, I think I'm going to try those hybrids, and you're good to go.
Why not? There's like we said, there's like 10 of them in the game. Why not go all? If you're gonna do a thing, like I personally don't know why somebody would go all in U4501, but they're out there. It's the most played submarine. It's like right up there with Shimakaze and games played anymore. So like people make choices. I don't understand, but like why not go all in on try something different. Do a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Give stuff a try. Anyway. We'll talk about Halford. So Halford is a real ship. First of all, we talked about real steel ships a little bit already and referenced this one. The U.S. Navy back in, I think it was the later stages of World War II. I'm not a historian. I encourage you to go study this yourself if you're interested. There is a really cool Wikipedia page that has a lot of details about Halford and some of the other ships. I think they did this to, I think it was 3 ships. And what they did was they did an experiment where they put a float plane, basically a spotter, to go out and do scouting on top of a Halford, or the Halford, which is a Fletcher class destroyer, and they could rocket that thing off there with a catapult. It would go out and fly around and provide intel. And the hope was they could use Halford as like a leader for a small group of destroyers, and they could go out there, fly around, and use that to kind of spot things to make up for the ships being shorter, which meant you'd get a little less vision or maybe less radar range or whatever on those ships compared to maybe having a larger battle group or being in support of a carrier or supported by a carrier and all of its airplanes and things like that. So kind of cool. And again, there's certainly more details to that. I am not an expert, and I'm not asking for somebody to correct me on all that, but definitely go check it out. It's a cool story. The U.S. Navy found out it didn't work. Wargaming, inspired by that story, basically said, well, what if we put a thing on the Halford, and we released it as kind of an homage to that historical ship. But kind of like you said earlier, remember, this is an action video game. We're going to plug this thing in, and we're going to, let's make it fun rather than realistic, because realistic stuff isn't always fun. But the idea is you launch that plane, a couple more join it in air, and now you've got a little rocket plane squadron on the Halford. I found Halford to be a little bit underwhelming as a destroyer initially, although now that I've played it a little bit more, I've found that using the planes is easier than I thought it was going to be originally. I really thought, hey, I don't have time to be flying some stupid planes around when I'm playing my destroyers, man. I'm contesting caps, I'm fighting other DDs, I'm watching out for aircraft and radar. How could I possibly do anything with this boat with aircraft? And one of the ways that they've made this relatively doable for you is they've given you longer range torpedoes. You got a decent concealment, which I don't remember off the top of my head, although we can get it for you.
6-1 when you build for it. Thank the maker, because it didn't start that way in test.
Was it higher?
But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go back and check dev blogs, folks. The concealment was like in the high 6s for a long time, and then it went down to 6-1 for release, which made it playable.
And so what I tend to do with this one is I use the torpedoes shoot like 13 kilometers or something. A little bit longer.
13.5.
13.5. Okay.
You get one rack.
Because they're longer, you can launch those from a greater distance, which means you can be unspotted, which means you have a little time to flight your planes. So if you can put your Halford in a place where maybe you've been fighting on a side and you've lost the battle, or you've won the battle, or you're losing the battle, or you're gonna win the battle, you can point your Halford where you want to be in a minute, hit the W button until it's maxed out, launch your torpedoes, which go farther than most Fletchers, and then launch your airplane and go off and do something useful with that. Come back and be in a position where you can start the next stage of your fight. That kind of a maneuver, that combination, I find myself doing a couple of times a battle as the shifting of the the location of the fight is happening. And you can also launch those planes when you're behind an island, especially if you know there's a target just over the island. You've launched your torpedoes, you ducked behind an island, you've brought the ship to a stop, you launch your plane, you go over, you airstrike a battleship, and then you drive out, pop your smoke, and start farming that battleship. There are some interesting combinations you can do with Halford that I did not think would work when I first heard about the ship. And I have a review for this on YouTube. If you go watch my Halford review, at the end I go, it's okay. I would go play Velos, which I think Helmet said in chat a minute ago. He said, it's garbage, get Velos. Do I think Halford's garbage? No. I do think Halford is the least powerful gun Fletcher, but it has other tricks and tools that make it interesting to play. I don't know if it's more powerful than any other Fletcher. I wouldn't say that it was, really. But I think it's more interesting to play than I gave it credit for in that initial review. Skada, you've got a Halford, obviously, at this point. How is your experience with Halford? What did you think about when it first came out? What were your thoughts? And then when you got the ship and got to log some miles in it, what did you think?
I thought, oh, weird, they're doing a hybrid destroyer. How's this going to work? And then obviously we learned about like the history. And the history, like you said, was it was going to be like a destroyer leader that launched a spotter plane that would do recon for the flotilla. And that, if you tried to translate that to World of Warships, you would launch a plane that gave Halford really long gun range with American 127s. That would be horrible. Like, so it doesn't translate that way. So they're like, we're gonna turn it into a hybrid. It'll just launch. Why doesn't it just launch some squadrons of Bearcats that shoot rockets at things? That sounds like the kids will like that.
Yeah, the kids will like the rockets.
So that's what it turned into. And I do think
like in quarters,
also fun idea. Now this makes me want to do the Fletcher ship show, but because I think this is the poorest of Fletchers, frankly. Even with its gimmick, the reload, it only has 4 turrets because you're giving up turrets for the situation with the planes, and it doesn't have like good DPM comparatively to like obviously like now that Johnston exists,
right.
Or Black, or even Fletcher or Chungmu, or Velos, or as the list goes on. But like Kid, my sweet Kid, or Zukwai, your favorite. Anyhow, the
yes.
So it's weird that way, and then like you said, it has longer range torps, which is kind of cool. But you only get 1 rack, and the torp reload's nothing to write home about. And then you've got these planes, and so like it's trying to figure out like the best of a bad situation when you play it.
Yeah, I saw Betaflex has a comment up here. He says, I will say Halford is, and Betaflex has logged a lot of battles in Halford now. I will say Halford is significantly underpowered. For a setup like hers, Velos is statistically better. She gives up a gun, a rack of torps, etc. Her concealment for planes that feel more like Lexington's Tiny Tim planes than Midway's Tiny Tim planes.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think you're right. It does feel like you're making the best of a bad situation. It sounds like Bayfix agrees. Yeah.
Like if you ready up in Halford, I feel like it's going to try to make the best of a bad situation.
We'll see what we can do here.
There is some interesting stuff you can do with it, because the thing that makes everybody mad about hybrids is you can spot stuff.
Yeah.
And so like being able, if like I've played plenty of Halford games. How many of them show up in WoW stats is a different question, but I've played plenty of Halford games, and I've done things with the planes that put you in a situation when you go into a random where there's no carriers, and you're like, oh cool, there's no planes, and now this dumb Halford has a little dumb squadron of planes, and you can go and you can spot other destroyers, or you can scout a cap for yourself before you go over there. Like, is that buffalo near this cap? Let me go see before I go over there. And so it has some features like that give it kind of a differing, interesting play style. And in the world of Fletchers, it is not the king of the Fletchers, but it certainly does offer a difference in play.
Right.
The rocket planes are wonky. They're not great. I have killed things with them. I remember specifically in one match engaging with a Kitakaze, which should have killed me just on paper.
Yeah.
And getting into a gunfight with him, breaking away. He slipped behind an island. I moved away from him, and I went back with the planes, and I struck him with the rockets and killed him. And I'm sure he was unhappy about that. But I'm sure there were plenty of people that were unhappy in other games where he killed them with the sheer gun power that is Kitakaze. So that's how the game works, right? And so you can do some weird things with it. But again, like, what is it available? It's generally for coal now, right? Like it became a coal ship.
Yes. Oh, I haven't even brought it up on the screen. I should have been doing this. Let me grab it real quick.
I think it's like a coal ship now, and
yes,
I don't know if I would recommend it. Like, say, hey, if you don't have a bunch of coal ships and you really want some kind of weird experience in a Fletcher,
if you want a weird coal ship that's kind of worse,
get yourself one of these. I'd probably say, hey, save up more coal and overpay for the black, if you want, because I think the black Fletcher experience with radar is probably more fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have any animus towards its existence, but I do not feel that it's a very strong ship.
No, I think I agree. I mean, I don't think I definitely agree. A couple of quirks about how she plays. Number one, she has 2 charges of the planes that you can launch. So you can launch one and then come back and pretty quickly launch another one. There might be a little bit of a cooldown period between launching the first one and the second one, but it's not the entire reload of that consumable, which is
right. And that is a cool thing. That is a unique thing. Yeah.
And it's not immediately intuitive that that's the case when you're looking at the UI. So it's kind of cool when you learn that. You're like, oh, sweet, I can launch these relatively twice, which is pretty cool. And then another thing about that, and this is really minor and doesn't matter, and I've mentioned this on stream, is that your planes, the catapult always turns to the right and launches your planes.
Yeah,
and so
sucks.
You should know about that so that you're pointed the right direction when you launch your when you launch your planes. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on is that when you launch those planes, they have a detection range of something like what is it, like 10 kilometers or something?
And it's freaky.
Yeah, it's 9 kilometers. And so when you launch those airplanes, you need to remember that if you weren't spotted before, people will know approximately where you are. And so that's a thing to know about when you're choosing to play the Halford. So a couple of those quirks. Remember, you've got 2 squadrons you can launch that are kind of like both ready at the same time. Weird. And then they always launch off the right, and you can get yourself unintentionally spotted that way. Marangana said earlier, she said, but Skada, destroyers are there to spot stuff. Why would I need these airplanes to spot stuff? Which I think is maybe a fair question. But sometimes the stuff you want to spot is not right next to you, Mari. So,
Well, one reason would be because Halford's concealment is built as 6-1, and the Jaeger exists at the same tier with a much lower concealment.
Also for coal.
And also for coal. So you can spot that darn Jaeger without him necessarily spotting you and launching torpedoes every 3 seconds.
Yeah,
so
that's actually a fair response to that as well.
or a Shima or other things in the tier range that have lower conceal, you can spot them.
Yeah, yeah. What's the
So
Asashio is down a tier and stuff.
Yes, the Asashio. The
Love
Asashio you should
those
be
little
trying to
guys.
face spot with this thing, but that's neither here nor there. Like,
Yeah, you could charge in if you could get close enough, as long as he wasn't going to spot you for his allies, that kind of thing.
But yeah, I was gonna say, you're right about the launching to the right. Really sucks when you're a south spawn, west flank, and you're moving up that flank, and you go to launch your planes, and it's like, or no, that's the good one. That's the good one because it launches you where you want to go. It's the other side where it launches you into the border. That's kind of a drag. I hate that.
Yeah.
And then, the planes themselves.
Ocean just made that. We talked about that earlier. Ocean, whereas once you've won your fight, you can fly to the other side while you're driving over there. That's totally true.
Yeah, the planes themselves are not exactly resilient, but they do hit okay. I think they're best used on battleship superstructures, just to like go. I'm going to go light a fire on that guy. Like that's where they're best used, at least if you're farming damage. Or their best, their real true, and let's be clear, their true best use is spotting other hard to spot stuff for people to shoot.
Yeah, but in addition to the, or go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, but their second best use is go strike a battleship in the superstructure or a large cruiser.
And one of the reasons why that's good is they are rockets. They can pen superstructure really well. They'll light fires and things like that. But in addition to that, battleships are easy to aim at and hit.
Yeah.
And you want to get back to your destroyer. Even though I said, hey, sometimes there's time when you've got free time to fly the airplanes, more than I thought you would have in a destroyer hybrid. I think the ease of aiming on a battleship is nice because you can just hit them and then go back and get ready to work your guns or work your torps or whatever as a follow-on action when you're done with that.
Yeah, when people didn't know what this ship was when it was in test, I remember getting chewed out by people because I wasn't near the cap in a destroyer because I might have slipped behind an island so I could do plane ops.
Yeah.
And I remember getting chewed out by people and being like, you're not good.
Do your job, JAWB
exactly.
job.
And it's like, hey, like look at the mini map. I'm in these planes. I'm actually spotting for you right now, but like, you cowards, it's those guys. And so like that, but thankfully then the boat came out, everybody got it or didn't or whatever, but at least then they knew what it was. So that stuff stopped.
Yeah. It was when Kaba first came out, people were like, why aren't you capping that cap like my Shima friend does?
Yeah.
Like,
why aren't you launching torpedoes from 20 kilometers?
And it just takes a while for the community to get smart about that, right?
But yeah, so like don't always presume that a boat like this is going to charge over and like park himself in a cap right away, because I do think there's value in, if you're going to do cap contesting caps with Halford, which it's okay at, to go take a look around the cap in your planes really quick and make sure that you're not going to go in there and then there's like, oh, it's a secret Des Moines, like, those kind of things. Like you can figure that out for yourself, which a lot of destroyers can't.
Secret Des Moines. That sounds like
that's your favorite. As I know, that's why you hate Des Moines from playing destroyers.
It's not
your whole Mossgrid fascination.
Horrible.
It's because you would be like, I'm just gonna back into this cap. I think it's finally a good time to do it. I'm radared. What's happening? Secret Des Moines, and then
I'm dead.
Smash. Yeah. Oh no.
I'm dead. I've been Secret Des Moines. Yeah.
Secret Des Moines got me right in the tushy.
Oh, yeah, not again.
Anyway, that's.
Well, and the thing about Halford is people who don't play destroyers regularly, who don't know about Halford, won't know that its concealment isn't 5.8 like every other flexure that they can think of.
Right.
They're going to think it's 5.8 or less, and it's not. It's 6.1, right? It's and so 6.1 is not great. Like it's not uber stealthy. It's fine, and that's what it is.
So I don't know if I have any more to say about Halford, but I'll ask you the same question now.
I think with it.
When Halford was released into the game, was Halford seen as a ruination to World of Warships?
No, I think people just thought it was a bad ship. So
right,
as long as the ship is bad that comes out, I don't think anybody's mad about it unless they bought the ship or it was a dockyard ship, right?
Yeah.
As long as it sucks, then it's okay. You can put bad ships that don't play like I like to play World of Warships in the game. That's fine.
Plus, this came out at like 4th of July with West Virginia 44 originally. Yeah. There's really ugly camo for this thing.
Oh gosh,
and it was like people wailed to get it because, as well we know, the 4th of July sales event thing is one of the biggest ones every year that
it's huge.
Wargaming
does.
Here it is.
It's
one of their biggest money makers.
Look at this beautiful ice sculpture.
Yeah.
I hate this camo so
Gross.
much. Wargaming, less of
Halford.
this, please. I think Betaflex, you run this one. You like this camo, you weirdo.
In case you weren't sure, folks, it's a Halford.
Yeah, it says right on the side there.
Yeah.
But not on both sides. Oh, wait, no, it does. Never mind, I lied.
To be fair, I have this camo for West Virginia 44, and I love it on West Virginia 44 because on West Virginia 44, it's red and orange, and it looks like a phoenix rising from the ashes, which is what West Virginia 44 did, right? It was
I like the theme there. I do like that theme.
And then they're like, well, we're also putting out Halford. What should we do? And the art team was like, use the same camo. We'll make it blue. It doesn't make sense to me on this ship. But
they did kind of a fire and ice thing, didn't they? I guess.
Yeah.
Was the idea.
Yeah.
But
I would like it if this one had
camo.
like a Iron Maiden, or no, not Iron Maiden. Who's Rob Halford, the lead singer?
What is his band? Not Megadeth. That's the other collab they did. But
yeah,
Rob Halford was. Chat, we need your help. What is the Rob Halford's band? Lots of leather. They were British, I believe.
Yeah, Hellbent for Leather. Is there record?
Yeah.
Anyway. They need that. Yes,
Thank
Judas
you.
Priest.
Wow, who's got us?
Yeah. It needs that tie-in. That's what the Halford needed back then, was just like a little Rob Halford out on the deck in like leathers, like singing Judas Priest when he went into battles. Breaking the law
kind of guy. All right, we'll jump to our next one here. And let's see what the Select-O-Matic chooses for us. Kearsarge. Well, let's have you kick off Kearsarge. We talked about it a little bit already. But here she is. This was a design, right? A real design, but not a real ship.
I don't think it was real. I think they had this story at the time where they're like, the Soviets approached the United States about, like, can you make us this thing, which was a hybrid battleship? And
I thought that was a real idea. I don't know if this is a real design, but I think that
happened.
Idea.
But they were like, supposedly this was a thing, and they're like, anyway, they didn't want it, so we made it in our game. The real one had a single turret. So basically, what you have in Kearsarge is the Tier 9. It is sold for coal.
Yes.
Back when they used to put out ships for coal. It's kind of like a Montana hull. I don't think it's quite a Montana hull, but it's kind of like a big hull like that. Obviously, you can see in the picture, it's got that wart in the middle that's a flight deck. And then it still has 12 guns. Like, it has 4 turrets. It shoots North Carolina munitions. They're 406 North Carolina shells. But, like, it doesn't matter because they still rock at Tier 9. Like, the guns are good on this. If you're used to, like, if you're the one negative is the base reload on it is so long. Like, it's like 36 seconds or something. It's really long.
I will check.
But the ship itself, as far as a battleship goes, is still very playable. Like, it has good range. If you're used to North Carolina, Alabama, Iowa, those kind of shell ballistics and stuff, like the long loping American battleship shell arcs, it's pretty good. It's not a bad battleship. What makes it a crummy battleship is the wart in the middle with the flight deck on it, because that's all superstructure. And so, like, anybody who's worth their salt is just going to shoot you there forever and just farm you for damage. It's just full pen town on the side of that thing.
So 19mm armor.
Yeah, just HE full pens all day long from destroyers and cruisers, and just get beat up there and just take a lot of damage.
Yeah, and at any sort of reasonable range for those kinds of platforms, they can hit the side of it. Whereas, like, at long range,
it's so big.
Hit the deck,
it's literally hitting the broadside of a barn. I mean, it's.
I mean, there's no animals in there, but yeah.
No, there's planes in there in theory, right? Like,
you are correct, by the way. 36 seconds for the armor, or for the reload, excuse me.
Yeah, that's like the thing. It's like, well, we gave it all these guns, and it's this big thing, and it launches these planes, but it's got a long reload, like Vermont, right? Or something like that. So, okay.
Well, they always do that with 12-gun battleships, right? They give them a little bit longer reload to make
Montana's that long.
Well, Montana was before they figured that out.
Fair. And then
that happened a while ago.
And then this launches. Are they like the planes off Saipan or off Midway? They're not the Bearcats. They're like
these ones are F8F Bearcats, so they are Bearcats.
Oh, they are Bearcats. Okay, so that's like the same, because I think that's what Halford launches too. Is like Bearcats, but
I think you might be right.
These actually have tiny Tims if I remember right. Whereas Halford's rockets, I don't think are Tiny Tims, although they might be. They might be the exact same planes
So
between the two.
Kearsarge's Tiny Tims, 3 rockets per payload. That's per plane. 5,400 damage max for each rocket. And it's 5 aircraft in an attacking flight. So you could land a total of 15 rockets if they all hit your target, which they won't, but they could.
And again, this is another thing where, like, in playing this ship, if you're getting stalked by a destroyer, you can launch these planes and find the destroyer. You probably won't hit it with the rockets because it's such a long machine gun refractory period now before the rockets actually just launch. But like, you can find the destroyer that's stalking you, and then maybe you can, engage with the planes, jump back to the ship really quick, and hope your turrets are aimed the right way so that you can pop a shot off while you're spotting for yourself. Otherwise, if you're, like actively using the planes like in attack mode, it's very similar to what we were talking about with like Halford or Komissar, because they're rocket planes. They do really big hits on battleships. So like, these are really good to go strike a battleship. Like if there's a GK or a Freddy de Grosser or something, like striking that in a superstructure, you're going to get a good chunk of damage and probably light a fire or two. And that's kind of what their gimmick is.
It seems like the only thing anybody ever talks about with this is the flight deck and how you can farm it forever. And maybe, it's got tier 8 shells or whatever. But I think that's not the whole story. I mean, I think this is a really good battleship that happens to have airplanes, because 12 North Carolina guns is amazing. Like, I don't think those like, get enough credit for what they are. They're so good.
Like, they're legitimately just at tier 9, if you took this ship and you didn't have the stupid hump on it and you didn't do the planes, and it was just some kind of tier 9 American battleship, and they said, well, because it's tier 9, it's going to have 12 guns, unlike Iowa, but they're going to be North Carolina guns, which seems like a thing they would do, it would be a really good battleship.
Yeah.
It has the guns pen well, and it has good damage output with the guns. Like, it's not a bad battleship experience. And what makes it a bad battleship is it's hard to take with that wart on your back.
Yeah, so it's not an up close battleship, is it? This is something you play with some range. Now, we had a battle earlier today where I had a Louisiana. We're not talking about Louisiana yet, but we had an American hybrid battleship on my team that was just off chilling, pretending it was an aircraft carrier. That's a little too much, but you can't really brawl with this thing, but that's okay, because you shouldn't. That's a very ineffective way to play that boat. But it is a good battleship. I think it was Helmet who said earlier, ignore the planes, just use the guns. I don't know if I agree with that advice, but I would agree with use the guns. Don't forget about them. Make sure they get used, because 12 North Carolina shells can do incredible things to pretty much any target in the game. Yes, even super ships, should you be facing those in your tier 9. And then again, you've got the airplanes for when you need them. Kearsarge, I didn't think I was going to like, because I thought, it's weird. Everybody says this boat's ugly. I don't think it's ugly, actually. I think it's a good-looking ship. It's just different. I don't think it's ugly. I do think it has an apartment block on it, as we used to call the wart, as you've been calling it tonight. It's a big old brick on top of the ship.
It's a tumor.
It's a tumor. All the horrible names people gave to it. It's not that unattractive looking of a ship. And I do think it's a pretty capable ship. This is a good boat.
If this was real steel and I could go to, like,
oh gosh, if this was a real boat
and like tour it now, I totally would. Because I'd be like, this is a really cool thing. Like, what did they do with this? But it never got built.
Yeah, it's not real.
It probably wasn't really real.
The nature of things, I guess.
I think I think what it is, as far as the looks and stuff, is kind of interesting.
Ghost front.
It's a shoebox.
Only a mother could love it. Maybe I'm the ship's mother.
And I was going to say, the other thing, this ship has the added benefit of being one of those ships that turns into the progenitor of a line.
Yeah,
where you'll see that in game, where they'll put out a one-off premium, and it's like kind of a new thing, and then later on they'll put a whole line out that's that. And this is one of those kind of ships.
This is the part of the ship that I think is cool looking. I like that it's got this offside, kind of off-kilter smokestack on the left there. And then the superstructure, I just think is cool looking. Maybe I like asymmetrical whatever, but I just think that's a cool looking silhouette. And I know people are like, they put a big rectangle up there. I don't like the rectangle. I'm sorry you don't like the rectangle, but like the turrets are sick. The camo is sick. Like, I don't know. Again, it's a weird shape. I'm not going to lie to you there. It is a weird shape, but I don't think
can't even imagine like how crewing operations would work on this if it had been real.
Yeah. They've got the elevators here in the deck. You can see where they would bring the ships up. I like these not on this side. Let me swing around. They've got these cranes that are like folded in with garage doors right there. Like, how does that work? Like, what even is that? Or is that just artistic, license, which is almost
that crane's for that longboat right there. That's for taking.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah, for swinging those boats off. Yeah. But anyway, like, yeah, you're totally right. If this was a museum ship, I would be on my way.
Yeah, man.
I'd be on a road trip right now. Let's go. Obviously, it's not. But I will say that this boat is absolutely free. You talked about Komissar, totally free. In fact, all three of the boats we've seen are free boats today, and you got to grind to get them, right? Coal's easy to get. I do love a good rectangle Cooper. That's right.
So like when we think of the order of release of hybrids, where was Kearsarge? Was Kearsarge like third?
It was what would have been so it was Issei first.
I feel like Tone was after Issei, but maybe this was.
I think this was second, is my recollection. Chat, if you know the order.
Yeah, it was like really early in the evolution of releasing hybrids into the game. Was this came out?
Yeah.
Second or third, and at the time, definitely the highest tier.
Yeah,
of them.
It was, and I remember that was a thing that people were like, "What? They're doing it at tier 9 now?"
Yeah,
and I was like,
"Yeah, I think Fuzzers. I think I was right. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I think it was Issei.
WRB seems to agree. Okay, so Tone was second,
but still, like the tier range and like this big battleship up there, you still see these get played. It's not, shoot. And I don't think. Again, I would say, and I'll go back to my question: when Kearsarge was released, was it ruination of World of Warships?
I would say Kearsarge had a bigger impact on World of Warships than the first two, if my memory serves. Now, we just learned that my memory doesn't always serve. I was wrong about the order. I'm going to go with chat here. I think you guys must be right. Tony must have been second.
Yeah, I can't go back and look on the old forums and see if there was just tons of threads. There probably was tons of threads.
Kearsarge, a lot of people talked about Kearsarge, but luckily there was a mix of two things. Number one was I hate you guys for putting more airplanes in the game. I mean. And number two was that thing's easy to Citadel. It's easy to farm. Yep. It had weaknesses that people could recognize and they understood, and it had strengths that people were sick of and couldn't believe that Wargaming would put in the game. The release dates are all in the Clyde Plays hot take spreadsheet as well.
The hot take spreadsheet.
There's not a filter for hybrid. That's not an option.
That's the hardest thing I was playing with earlier. The stuff I normally set up when we do a show like this, I'm like, I can't easily do.
I know. There's not like a filter for this. You have to kind of cook it up yourself. But but no, I think a lot of people were like, that ship sucks, and a lot of people were, that ship's great. And in my mind, I think that's the mark of actually a good ship. If there's a disagreement in the community, it means that it has strengths and weaknesses, and they appeal to different players, and that's a good thing. I think Kearsarge is a good ship. I didn't think I was going to like it, which I like it more than I think I like Halford. It's much more powerful than Halford is, tier for tier, class for class.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Kearsarge.
I've had some surprisingly like really good games in Kearsarge.
I should go play it some more.
And I don't think it necessarily had a whole heck of a lot to do with airplane damage.
No, it's just got 12 freaking amazing battleship guns.
The guns are just good. It was just good battleship play. And like, I remember one game where I think we were playing in a div, and I was just able to like roll up a flank and just kept getting deeper and making nice shots with it, and had a really nice game in it. It just was fun. Yeah. You remember those games? I also remember like Kearsarge. That's why I think about the tumor, is because you get too close to a God help you now with like Los Andes, and you don't want to get close to those. You don't want to get close to the Schlieffen line. You don't want to even get close to traditional secondary battleships, because they just eat up the tumor. There's just so much of that superstructure side that the secondaries are going to rip into, and you're just going to take full pens. It's going to suck.
Biggles has confirmed the order was Issei, Tone, Kearsarge, and then Leviathan said something that I think is really important to remember right now, especially while we're in Hildebrand apocalypse. Was I remember when this ship, he's referring to Kearsarge, came out, there were 2 to 3 Kearsarges on every team, and with the CV, it was just nonstop aircraft spottings and everything, and it was insane. and it all died down. Like it all
Yeah,
got
it
back to
always
normal.
does. Yeah.
And it will again with Hildebrand. In fact, it already is with Hildebrand, which is good news. Because
Yeah.
when there were 3 Hildebrands per side, that did suck. Like,
yeah, the first weekend of this patch with all that
It
going
was
on, I was
so bad.
playing 7s. I avoided going
oh
up there.
gosh, yeah.
And
Just staying
and
away.
now where we're at in the patch, playing 9s and 10s, I'm not seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
Could be peer pressure though, or it could be what we're seeing where there's just a lot of negative sentiment.
Well, and a
And
lot of
people
who,
don't like to be put. Some people will be like, pound sand, I'll do what I want.
yeah,
But a lot of people just don't want to be put upon. They don't want to hit play in their favorite boat game and try to play a new thing that they just got and have everybody have
like a
severe
jerk
animosity
about it.
towards them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is a lot of the people who were wailing in to buy those, they wail to buy everything, and they don't play
Yeah.
everything all the time. They
Yep.
they spend their money, they have their
they're
fun,
all
and they're
playing
good.
Tennessee today.
Yeah, they're on the next one, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's a
They're
good
on to the
point.
next one.
Yeah, and Tennessee's out there too. That's a fun boat. We'll talk about that another time. But I think that's basically the summary on Kearsarge. Kearsarge, good boat, you think? I know I've said it.
Yeah,
was,
I like it.
Yeah, okay. I guess you
Yeah.
said that. But yeah, I like
it has enough, like you said, it has pluses and minuses. It doesn't have, sure, the plane thing, if you don't like getting spotted by planes, is a drag. But like in general, like the pluses and minuses of it kind of weigh out. Like if it had a 30-second reload on those guns and 45 millimeter plate around that flight deck, it would be overpowered.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it launched torpedo planes or HE bombers, like Midway HE bombers, it would be different. But with the rockets, like,
yeah,
it's not so bad.
And you can, by the way, we didn't talk about this, but you can land 10,000 damage rocket salvos on battleships, right?
Like the rockets hit hard.
It's food. Yeah. They're tiny Tims, right? They're the punchy rockets. And to your comment earlier, right? Its food is airstrike and other battleships. And so because it can't hit destroyers very well, you can get chonky salvo
68 millimeter pen with those. You can pen through deck. So I aim for superstructure, but like if you go same on like large cruisers, if you can hit them if they're not moving or if they're moving slow, and you don't have to worry about the thing. I'm not great at lining up rocket strikes, but if you're like Joe Carrier and that's just your jam, you're gonna do a lot of havoc with these. Same with the ones on Halford. You just get more rockets on this one.
Kearsarge planes are pretty butch.
And like you get and you'll set fires, and then you'll jump back to your ship and you'll fire 12 North Carolina guns of AP at them too, which is devastating. So
Betaflex
damage output wise, it has a lot of gimmicks.
Yeah, it does. Betaflex is the guy at the bar with a story about a 12,000 damage salvo on a Trump. I mean, it happens, right? You can do it, but again, battleships are going to be much more reliable. That said, you want to make sure in any battle you're putting your damage in a place where it's going to help you win the game, right? And farming random battleships is often not that, but battleships got to get killed too, so you got to work on those. Might as well chunk them with those aircraft. Okay. Final thoughts on Kearsarge. I don't want to push us off if we're not done, but otherwise I'm going to.
Yeah, I think it's a fine coal boat. I'm okay with it. I don't think it's ruination.
Yeah, I don't think it destroyed the game. It's just it's Kearsarge. Okay, Chikuma II. Now this is one, I think you don't have this one. You can't talk about this yet.
I do have this one. I can talk about it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do.
All right. Well, in that case, let us continue. I'll lead off on Chikuma II. So it would have been ideal if we talked about Tone first. Chikuma II is similar to Tone, but came out later. This is a Tier 9 Japanese cruiser, as it says on the screen there. Chikuma II has smoke and hydros and good guns, excellent concealment, and aircraft as well. And I feel like I'm missing one of its magic tricks. Nice hull repair as well, I guess.
Yes. Hydros, or DEF-AA, smoke, heal, torpedoes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
torpedoes. I see Keaton is in here, so that's why we're saying torpedoes. That's reminded me at least.
Torpedoes on the backboard. I think, those are the things
I think that's the tricks.
It's got, 8 guns like Tone.
Yeah. I'll bring up a picture of it here. She's she's really stealthy.
I assume this and Tone were like sister ships.
Yes, DGW Photos made that comment earlier. In fact, here he's bringing in some more historical context in the chat if you're reading that. But definitely really stealthy ships, both of them. This one being kind of a Tone ++, at least as represented in the video game, a little bit better. That smoke is a game changer. The conceal on this boat, C says
Is
8.8. Let me bring in my captain. Yep, we can confirm.
which is obscene.
Which is obscene, and it has smoke, right? Tone's really stealthy too, but then this one adds smoke. You can do some sinister stuff with Chikuma II. I like this boat a lot because I like Japanese cruisers. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think this has like a much better main battery reload. It might be a little bit better because you can slot because it's a tier 9, you can slot 6 reload, which you can't on Tone. And that's kind of one of the things with Tone. Like we'll get to Tone, but like this one, like the guns, it's Japanese 203. They're like, what are they, like Miyoko or Atago kind of turrets?
More like Atago turrets, probably. Yeah.
Maybe they're Buki turrets. I don't remember what's on a Buki. I haven't played that in forever. It probably has 3 barrels.
A lot of those turrets are related, right? They're all different models of IJN 203s. I'd have to go look to get the particulars. But it's got like this
chunky 203 that has really good HE with like high alpha and good fire chance.
Good accuracy.
It doesn't have like insane main battery range. The main battery range is only 15.7 on it. But with the 8.8 conceal and the smoke, I think 15.7's fine.
Totally. And that's similar to Atago. Like if you're familiar with Atago, that ratio of spotting range to gun range is pretty common or pretty similar.
Yeah. And then it has the planes, and what makes the planes on it different than Tone is, we haven't talked about Tone yet, but Tone, just to comparison, they both have torpedo bombers. Or that's what they go out with. The Tone ones are like the same as Issei, with like we were talking about Issei before, with like the big widespread of a bunch of torpedoes that are all kind of weak. This one rectifies that by having an attack flight that I think is only just like 2 planes that drop like good torpedoes. Like it drops like torpedoes with like an 8,300 damage alpha.
Yes.
So like it has and so it's just 2 torpedoes. You go in, it's like dropping. It's like it's not like using Kaga. It's more like using the tech line Japanese carriers where you drop like 2 torpedoes.
Yeah, I think C's Nuts is in chat. And he might know which airplanes these are. C's don't feel put upon, but instead of like what is it, 6 or multiple 6 or 8 maybe torpedoes that you drop with Tone.
They're Sirens. I can't remember what Japanese carrier uses those 2. I don't think they're like unique. I think
C says it's Shikaku. Yeah,
it's like Shikaku planes maybe.
Really, so punchy.
And so like the interesting thing with this though, with that concealment and with relatively good guns, it's got these crazy like turrets forward that do like the weird like super firing Japanese stuff. But if you get all of those, and they're accurate too, like the guns aren't like wonky on this one, they're really accurate. So like you can use this, and I think it's a good cruiser. It kind of is like Komissar, where I'm like, it's a pretty good cruiser. And it has the plane thing.
Oh, look at these planes. And I'll say, and again, I know we haven't talked about Tone, so we're really kind of spoiling Tone a bit. Tone's got those Issei planes, right? I talked about how easy it is to hit something with your Issei planes. Tone, pretty easy to hit with Tone planes too. Chikuma II asks a little bit more of you. The planes are frail against high tier AA. They're not like going to fall apart on you, but if you lose one, you lose 50% of your damage potential, right? And so Chikuma asks you, hey, I really need you to be a little bit better airplane captain or aircraft pilot or whatever. I need you to be a little bit more than you were when you were playing Tone. But the punch on them is a lot more. And as C's just adds in chat, but they're so much better, dude. I'm going to add the dude to your statement, C's. But like they are so much punchier than the ones you have at tier 8 and the ones you have at tier 6. But they do demand that you up your skill. So will I say that it's hard to hit with Chikuma torps? No, I won't say that, but it's harder. And you're rewarded for being good at it. Whereas with the other, it's a little bit easier to just kind of swoop in, get a little damage, go back to your guns.
Back to what I'm saying too, though, about like it's a pretty good cruiser.
Totally derailed you.
No, totally fine. Like its torpedo loadout, like its actual ship-based torpedoes are sick. Like they are 15-kilometer torpedoes. You have 2 launchers on each side that launch 3 torpedoes apiece. They go 15 kilometers. They are 27,000 damage alpha torpedoes that go at 60 knots. They have crummy detection because they're Japanese at 1.7 kilometers.
Yeah.
And and unlike a lot of Japanese cruisers in this tier range, they have relatively good firing arcs because this ship's new enough that it has like Yodo style tourney torpedoes. So when you launch them, they go out and they squiggle around in the water and then go off on the line that you put them on. And so just like again, like you've got pretty good AP or pretty good AP, pretty good HE, 8 barrels. That part's kind of rough. 8 barrel cruisers are rough. But then you have this like pretty stout torpedoes that you could dump, and they aren't short range. I mean, they're 15-kilometer torps. Like your concealment's 8.8.
Yeah.
They're good torpedoes.
She's basically a triple threat, right? You got the guns, not maybe as many guns as you'd have on some other Japanese cruiser that's not a hybrid.
Yeah, like if I think about like another one with that number of guns, I think of the Tier 7 Maya. Like the Tier 7 Otago that only has that many guns, right? Yeah.
And the reload booster. Yeah. But like, you got those 8 guns. You've got, as you said, 2 launchers per side. I just showed them on the screen with the wiggly torps. Again, I can't show you the angles of the torps right here, but rest assured they're not terrible. And then you've got the aircraft as well. Like Miyoko's like, I'll shoot behind me, and that's like exclusively it. So like, I mean, and then again, on top of that, the concealment and the smoke. Chikuma is great. And the trouble I have with Chikuma, of course, is how they released it. They made it really hard for people to get.
Yeah.
And
it's a rare ship.
Yeah. It's really rare. And they're giving folks another chance. They announced on the website in one of the in the patch notes that at some point it's coming out in a thing called the Steel Will event. We don't know what it's going to cost. I assume it's steel. We did a Steel Will event last year. That was the one where they sold all the uber rare camos for steel, and then they said, we're never going to tell you if we're going to sell these again. We might not. It's not something we're sharing. We don't know what they're going to do with the ships for Steel Will. So I'm keeping my eyes on the news. I recommend that if you guys are interested in Chikuma II or the other ships that are coming out in that event, you keep your eyes on that as well. So we know that it will be available again, but not for but only probably for steel. Not 100% sure, but the event's called Steel Will, so probably. And then for how long, we don't know. So keep your eyes on that if this is something that's of interest to you. Again, it's another ship that you couldn't get for free so far, but if it is sold for steel here in the Steel Will event, then it would be for a free currency.
Yeah, really that's kind of the release methodology was kind of a disappointing thing. And we joked earlier in the show about Chikuma II Golden, which is it's a carbon copy of this boat with a crazy gold camo because of when the ships came out. It's the exact same boat though. I've just pulled up on one of our favorite things to do. I pulled this up on WoW's numbers, right? Because I'm like, how many people have played this? So like I'm looking at stats on the North American server relevant to us. Sure. How many random battles do you think have been logged in Chikuma II?
Oh, I was gonna say 3,000, but I'm gonna say 3,500.
7,300.
Okay. I should always know the community will grind more battles than I think, but still, that's
how many
small.
in Chikuma II Golden? This is way more than I thought it would be.
Really? Okay. Yeah. You've given me a clue. I'll say 1,800.
1,759.
Oh, I went over those. So
I am stunned.
Bob's not going to give me
any. Use. You don't get. There's no Barker's Beauties for you. But I'm surprised it has that many because no one has that dang ship.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I did play 1,100 battles in it, so maybe I was part of the problem.
It's always my favorite thing when we do this. I go in here and I'm like, let's look at all Tier 9 cruisers. Like, who has what, right?
Yeah.
The least played Tier 9 cruiser is Bad Attitude Takahashi, and I've used pizza points to make you play that at least 2 or 3 times. So
thanks for nothing.
And then right above Chikuma II Gold is the Mang Chong. And if anybody in chat right now can tell us what the Mang Chong is, I'll be surprised. I
was like, what are you going to offer these people? That's funny. You will have earned my surprise.
Chikuma II Gold, normal Chikuma II at 7,300 battles is wedged in between Almirante Akindo, the dockyard ship that just came out. At 6,500 battles. Also, man, that's a low number for that ship, considering it's a dockyard.
Akindo didn't get a lot of play. Yeah.
And then Tianjin, another ship that if anybody in chat wants to pipe up about their knowledge on Tianjin.
How many battles does Tianjin have? Is it more or less?
8,700.
Wow, I'm shocked actually. That's another boat that came and went and nobody has but me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Van Speak's down there too. We can talk about these numbers forever. Nobody cares about this. But so nobody has this boat. Your odds of seeing one is low. But it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like
Chikuma's,
it's
I think she's worth having if you like Japanese gun ballistics or airplanes or torpedoes. And I know you like one of those three
yeah.
things.
I
Everybody likes
really
one of those
thought
three things.
after they did the whole thing last year with the Golden Week event and how they put this out and how it was hard to get, and then they've been sitting on it, I really thought it would show up as a coal boat this year. And I'm really surprised
Yeah.
that it's part of this event that they're doing. Who knows? Maybe it will be a coal boat in that event. I have no idea. I doubt it,
I mean, it's
but
called steel will, so I feel like it has to be steel, but
right.
I'm holding judgment like you. I'm waiting to
Yeah,
see.
who knows? Right? Yeah, who knows? But it's the one ship they announced that's part of the Steel Will event that isn't new.
Yeah.
You know, all the other ships are ships that have not been released yet or new ships. This is the one that isn't. So
Well, and it's weird if they do sell it for steel because steel ships historically have always only been available for steel.
Yeah.
And you can't buy them and everything. And while this isn't like there was a steel ship and now you can buy it for money, because there've been steel ships that have moved to coal, right? Like,
yeah.
But like this is a money ship they're moving to steel. It's just odd. I don't know. I feel like Wargaming's doing a thing where they have these like sort of special boats. Like thinking about Enterprise, right? Enterprise is out, has been out. There was a period where you could get it for money or whatever, and then very short. Now it's uber rare and it's special, and they don't let Enterprise out of the barn very often. And they're gonna put it out pretty soon, and they're not just gonna put it out for people to buy it. And some people are upset by that because they just want to buy it. But they're going to put it out for people to buy it if you've also played some matches. And the price they announced, Gaishu and Bogsy were quoting this from memory. So this is not a guaranteed price. But they said Enterprise will be around 14,000 dubs, I think, is the quote. I think it's around 14,000 dubs. If you do the math, 14,000 dubs is $56. It's a little bit expensive.
Normally a tier 8's like a tier 8 carrier is like 11,000 dubs, right?
Some of the I went and I looked at the most expensive tier 8 ship, I think is the Roma, and it's 13,000 and change, 13,600. So it's like $52 or something.
So like Kaga
it's not
or
that
something
far
like
away.
12,000 dub thing.
Probably 12 or 12.5. So it's not cheap, but it's not that much more. I thought it would be worse is really what I'm trying to say. I should just say that. That's a faster way to say this. I thought it would be more money. And so like, but they're still putting a gate in front of you. They're going to make you grind some missions, and grinding the missions is potentially going to be hard. I don't know exactly what they're going to be like, but like they're kind of treating Enterprise as a special ship, and they're putting it behind missions and money rather than just money or just missions. And Chikuma II, they put behind money and a weird slot machine thing before. Now they're putting it behind this steel event. Not 100% sure how that's going to play out. I wonder if Chikuma II, I don't think they think it's an Enterprise per se, but I think they think of it as kind of a boat that's special, I guess, because they made it kind of weird to get the first time. And then the second time, they didn't make it easy. They didn't just put it in the coal store like you were saying. I thought maybe it'd be a coal boat, right?
They think of a lot of high tier premiums that way. Rhode Island comes to
Rhode
mind.
Island's kind of they're treating it special.
A lot of 9s and 10s that come out now that are high tier premiums. They come out and they're sold for money, or that ostensibly, no matter how way you look at it, they're through gambling events, and then they're
money with extra steps, right?
They're pulled to beat up to increase FOMO for them, and then they can bring them back again in a similar kind of fashion and FOMO you again on them. And then eventually they'll figure that'll math out that, okay, now it's time to make it readily available, or all of a sudden now that FOMO ship's going to be coal or it's going to be something else, right? And they'll change that, they'll do that. So, but that seems to be the design language now with 9s and 10s. We see a lot of tier 9. We see a lot more tier 9 and tier 10 premiums than we ever used to.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation.
You don't see a lot of mid-tier premiums anymore. They don't invest in them because it costs the same amount of money for them to develop any kind of ship. And so they tend to make the ones they can sell for the most money now.
And we do see some mid-tier stuff coming out, but it's usually for special events. So like right now, there's a couple of tier 7 battleships that have been announced. They're kind of like, they announced them together. It makes me feel like there's going to be an event where they both come out together, and you'll be able to grind a bunch of missions and maybe throw in a couple of dubs to get one or both. And, like we see those kinds of things. Last year we saw it with Stored 43 and Scharnhorst 43 and Leipzig and, these other ships that kind of came out in similar ways. And so they do a lot of this is just like a random conversation we're having now.
Yeah, totally.
They do it. We'll get back to ships, I promise. But they do a lot of like, those kinds of ships tend to be used to keep you engaged and play the game. For the high tier ships, they're doing the money thing and eventually transition to something that's a play the game kind of thing. So sold Malta for cash. Later, you could get Malta for coal. Cash is money. Coal is play the game for a while, right? And they want you to do both, frankly. So anyway, this strategy of how they're releasing these boats, I don't know if that means they think Chikuma is special or Chikuma is special, but it does seem to be that that's the way they're handling some of these high tier.
I mean, ultimately, the numbers I just read off to you would tell you that the people who did try to get it last time around, there aren't very many of them, or they're never playing it. And to be fair, I'm looking at the data I have. Obviously, is like scalped for randoms. Like, who knows? Maybe at Chikuma II whales are up in co-ops all the time, or ops. I don't know.
They have
but
this.
So from a certain point of view, I would contend that they're like, that's a tier 9 that we developed. How can we remonetize it, or what can we do to get another round of money out of it?
Right. And another round of the other thing too is one of the things that gaming companies, especially those doing this kind of game as a service model, are trying to do is make sure that there's always content for you to play. They always want to make it worthwhile for you to come back and play. That's why some of the things are about playtime more than money, or maybe playtime and money. Because they don't want you to get bored. Because if stuff isn't there for you to play for, coal ships, steel ships, research bureau ships, tech tree ships, whatever, then you'll not log in as often. And if you don't log in as often, then you won't be ready for the next event, or you won't, or you'll think the game is starting to fold or whatever. And so they do a lot of that's what the missions are for, is to keep you thinking that there's always cool stuff. And I'm not saying thinking like they're tricking you. They just want you to be thinking about World of Warships all the time, right? And so is there anything wrong with that? No, but it's important that us as players know about that. We understand what the tactics and strategies are, and we know how we feel about them and how we want to interact with that stuff. I haven't given one of those speeches on stream in a while, but here's one. Anyway.
Now in the edit, now you're gonna have to spend time editing this section out and releasing it as a separate thing where we complain about that. I don't,
No, I think I'll just leave it in here. I'll chapter it. I'll just chapter.
I'm not even gonna ask on this one. Did the release of Chikuma II ruin World of Warships because no one got it?
No, it totally didn't, because nobody got it. But the same limitation.
Check in after the Steel Will event. Maybe it will be 10 steel or some silly thing, and then there'll be a million of them, and people will be like, Chikuma II, I hate it.
Yeah, Chickpocalypse, right?
Yeah, the Chickpocalypse.
Okay, let's jump to our next one here, which is actually Tone. So this is actually really nice that those came together. So
cool.
Chikuma, again, the tier 9. Tone is the tier 8. We talked a little bit about the differences. Both ships, similar turret layouts up front. Both ships have torpedo bombers, but different torpedo bomber strategies. The two torpedoes of really high damage in Chikuma that kind of demands a little bit of more skill from you. Tone has lots of torpedoes. I don't remember how many, but I'll look it up here once I'm done with my section, unless Skada comes up with a number here while I'm talking. But it launches 6 or 8. How many torpedoes does it launch? Is it 8? It's either 6 or 8, it feels like. It's probably 8. But it launches a big spread of torpedoes that are easier to hit with and do less damage. Again, good stealth, good Japanese ballistics, no smoke on this one, good hull repair. Tone is another one that both of us have been credited or quoted as saying, this is just a good cruiser that happens to have airplanes if you want them as well. And Tone is not banned in clan battles during the tier 8 clan battle season. She's not super overpowered. And weirdly this season, we're seeing Atagos. I've only seen one Tone, I think.
Yeah,
but
I
don't know
last week
if we'll ever see another one. But we sort of preempted Tone a little bit already, but what do you think of Tone?
Tone, yeah, like we talked about earlier, Tone was the second hybrid that was introduced in game. It was kind of a cool curiosity.
Just rubbing it in that I was wrong again. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Again, it was like, oh, this was a historical thing. This was a real thing that the Japanese tried, right? And it had it did a thing. And early in the war too, like it wasn't like a late war, like throwing rice at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing for them. It was a thing that they had early in the war. But yeah, so as far as gameplay goes, again, this is a boat that it has a bunch of stuff like Chikuma II that we just talked about that I think is cool. When it as equipped with a captain, it has an 8.8 kilometer concealment. That's insane for tier 8. Like that's really great. It has 8 guns. They're Japanese 203s that light fires. It has the same 15.7 like low range. It does have a little bit longer reload than Chikuma II. Downside on this is unlike Chikuma II, you don't get the smoke. And that's kind of the thing that made Chikuma II like better. That and its torpedo payload make it better. Like this has, again, similar torpedo launchers, 4x3s. It doesn't have tourney torps because it's older than that, and the torps
Right.
go 10 kilometers instead of 15. Again, though, the torps aren't bad. Like, and you should use them. You should dump them in places just like you would on a Japanese cruiser. You can stealth torp in this, so dump your torps. And this is another boat where, like, historically, I've always said to you, like, yeah, it's a pretty good cruiser. Like, I'm not a huge IJN player, but I've always thought, yeah, it's a pretty good cruiser because it's got a heel and it's got hydros and it's got the torpedoes and it's got decent guns. And then the airplanes, and you and I were already familiar with the way the airplanes worked because they're like identical to the ones on Issei.
Telling you that Issei is a gateway drug. It's
yeah,
trying
it
to
is.
trick people
the
to get in
downside
there,
is that now you're at tier 8 with these planes that were okay on a tier 6 battleship, but now you're in a tier 8 cruiser trying to drop a Montana and they get shredded before you ever do a drop.
So you try to drop a Montana a couple of times and then you don't try that anymore. But against tier 8s, you'll land torpedoes and you can get, it's actually really fun to hit people with Tone, and it's not hard. Maybe I'm a lazy player or a medium player, but like I like that I can just like thump, 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 thump. You land 4 or 5 torpedoes, you get 6,000 or 7,000 damage, and you go yay, right? Like I kind of like that about Tone, and you can do it when you're only 11 kilometers away from them from complete and utter stealth, which is exciting. And then you can switch back and launch your real torpedoes, which go, I think, 10 kilometers.
Yep, they're 10.
And then they punch pretty good because they're Japanese torpedoes. How much damage do those do? 17,000 damage.
I think. Yeah, they hit hard.
17,233. And actually, I'm sorry, in my build, 19,818 damage because I buffed them a little bit. Because when you buff the torpedoes on this boat, it also buffs the airplane
ones too.
Torpedoes. Yeah. So you should do that with your captain build.
So now, if you should have a weird captain that's for Chikuma and Tone if you have these boats, and you should use Pack-a-Punch, which is what they've renamed that skill. It gives you 20% range on your secondaries as well, which is probably very exciting on these ships.
It's absolutely useless, but I mean, to get that extra torpedo damage is great because you'll use it on both of your
8.3 kilometer secondaries on an 8.8 conceal. So like,
maybe
if
it's
there's
not
a
so
destroyer
bad.
close enough to spot you, these crummy secondaries will start shooting.
They'll at least, startle him, I guess. I don't know.
They have like a 7.5 second reload. They're like a Tago turrets or something, secondaries. But it's fine.
Honestly, if a destroyer face spots me in Tone, I'm having a good day. Let's play. I'm ready. I got the guns for you, buddy. This thing's fun.
I've got guns. I've got hydros. I can dump torps in the water. I can
launch my planes if I have to. Right? Yeah. Like I'll come up with some way.
Not a bad situation.
Yeah, you're not sad unless, of course, he's got friends. In which case, it's not fun.
Unless it's a Halford.
Well, sure. If it's Halford, all bets are off.
Then you both are required to launch your planes and simulate a dogfight.
Yeah,
I think
you
that's
grab
the
a
rules
sword
of the
in front of your eye and you get into some sort of duel. But no, Tone is great. I have a hard time not loving Tone, but I really like Atago. I really like all the Japanese cruisers, honestly. But this one feels more like Atago than Mogami. If you haven't played Atago, but you've played Mogami, and I don't know, well, I do know why. I was gonna say, I don't know why, but I do know why. Just doesn't feel as survivable as Atago. Atago not only has better armor, but it also has a heel. And that's a very different situation than playing Mogami. So if you haven't played Otago and you're like, this was probably terrible, like my Mogami, if you had a bad experience with that boat, Tony doesn't feel like that. It feels better, I would say, in the survivability camp. Plus, it's more stealthy. It's just a lot of benefits to this machine.
Yeah. Again, like I'm not like I said, I'm not a big into IJN cruisers, but I like Maya at tier 7, which is a weird like 4-turret Atago with a heel and a reload booster. I like this boat at 8 because the concealment's low and it has a heel and it's got, just playing it as a cruiser is fine. Like it's fine. The DPM isn't amazing because of the reload, but that's intentional because of the planes. And then like I like Chikuma II for these same reasons, right? Like like if I'm gonna go, you gotta play a Japanese cruiser at tier 9 or whatever, I would grab Chikuma II. If I had to play it at tier 8, I'd grab Tone. Because of the package of stuff. I think they're fine. Like I would love to have some variant of Tone that had the 155s off the Mogami on it.
Yeah,
Like
that would be
if they
fun.
made that boat, I think that'd be really cool because that's my favorite. Is one.
The Shimano 2 or whatever.
No,
Like,
not the Shimato guns. Those are the worst. The Mogami 155 or die. Those are the only good ones. The
I
ones
knew
on
I
the
would. I would.
how dare you bring up them? Yeah, so give me the BA Takahashi 2, but with airplane.
But terribler. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I didn't. I wanted to evoke a response, but I did not mean
yeah,
to
you
offend
did it.
you.
You needed it.
I might have
Terrible. How dare
also
you?
offended you.
Boulder Dash.
Boulder Dash. Yeah. We
When
like
Tony was released, did
most of
Tony
these
ruin the game?
boats so far. We didn't really get wild about Halford, but we gave Halford its due, I'd say.
We talked about Halford.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the one we would probably recommend the least so far. And I don't want to jump to the end here, but I was just sitting back and noticing that of the 5 boats we've talked about, 4 of them have gotten pretty good marks from us. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and again, like we knew this would happen because we are open-minded.
Well, there's
about what they bring to the game, and we like variety. And Tony was the second one of these that came out. It was at tier 8. I don't think it was the end of World of Warships at the time.
And let me tell you, Issei came out and was kind of medium, and we didn't really, get super geeked about Issei per se. I guess we haven't talked about it technically yet. But like this book came out and was just good. And again, it didn't burn the world down or anything. So thank goodness for that. Tony's great.
Yeah, this boat's not like overpowered. It's just fine. It's not a bad experience.
Yeah, agreed.
Like I don't know. I don't want to oversell that. Like, oh, it's good. Like it's good.
Like Kearsarge, though, it has weaknesses.
It's not great. It's just good, and that's okay. There's plenty of tier 8. There's so many tier 8 premiums. There are plenty of tier 8 premiums that aren't good.
Yeah.
Like this is at least we think good. And that's separate from it being a hybrid. That's just the thing it has.
Yeah. It's just a good boat.
Yeah.
Period.
But you can then use the planes to go harass destroyers and spot them forever for your friends.
I think that's a nice sentiment to end on is it's just pretty darn good. Plus you can spot destroyers for your friends.
Yeah.
So let's jump to our next one here.
Okay.
Louisiana. I don't remember did I talk about the last one? Can you talk about Louisiana to kick us off? I can talk about it too. I like this boat.
Yeah, so here's where we kind of hit like a tonal shift in what they've done, right? So I don't know in the timeline. This line came out in post Christmas almost a year and a half ago, right? Maybe this January would probably been 2 years since this line came out.
I think that's about right. This boat was in last year's Golden Barnacles.
I think it was in patch was it in Golden? Was it only in 12.1 that it came out?
It was in last year's award show. I remember putting it in the videos. So it came out in 2023 at some point, but I don't remember if it was early in the year.
I think it came out in like 12.1 or 12.2 for early access and yada, yada, yada. And so what we get to here is we're going to talk about Louisiana, but we're going to also cover the fact that Louisiana is the tier 10 part of a tech tree line.
That's true. We can talk
about the only
as well.
Tech tree hybrids in the game. Yes. And it was released as this is the tier 10, the pinnacle of the line. There's the tier 8's the Nebraska, the tier 9 is the Delaware, and then there's the tier 10. And
check this raft count. Holy cow.
Yeah, man, they got a lot of rafts. There's a lot of guys on
raft count maximum. Let's go.
Yeah. Hopefully that side doesn't get peppered with HE because those rafts are just going to be useless.
Wait a minute. This is exactly where I want to pepper this ship with HE, though.
I know.
Well, we'll talk about that later. You were trying to drive to
similar to Kearsarge. This is an American tier 10 battleship. Kearsarge is tier 9. Again, this kind of uses like a Montana hull layout, but instead of all the turrets that Kearsarge has, this has this funky 4-barrel turret in the back that's squatted underneath the end of the flight deck, and then up front it has two 3-barrel turrets. So you're down a couple barrels from like Kearsarge and from like Montana and its tiers. It's 406s. I believe this has Montana shells. I think they're all like in lockstep at this point. Like Nebraska, I think at tier 8 has North Carolina guns in a really bad configuration. Delaware at tier 9 is has Iowa stuff And this
Right.
at the Louisiana at tier 10 has Montana stuff if memory serves. You have this awesome camo that came out when this line came out. These
Camo is
camos are
pretty
cool.
sick.
But yeah, so this one again, American style battleship, moves around it, very similar to your normal American fast battleship line. Just trades gun count for this flight deck that launches bombers. So these launch bombers. These only have one type of plane, right?
Yes,
It's
just bombers.
these.
I'll show the contents here.
Yeah, and so that's also like kind of a difference. So like all the other ones we've talked, the other American ones we talked about have rocket planes, and these at the tech line have HE bombers. And at the tier 10, it's not a dive bomber animation. It's more like a level bomber. So like if you've what tech ship has that? This might be the tech ship that has it. Like those level bombers like that, it's kind of like the Hornets B-25s, and it works kind of that way. They don't do a big old dive bomber animation. When these first came out, that bomber loadout was pretty powerful.
It was
The
pretty
reticle
accurate, wasn't it?
was very accurate. The reticle wasn't super small, but it wasn't super big, and you could crush destroyers with it. And
I hated it.
You hated it, and I
was
loved
real
it.
mad about it.
I liked these because if you were cruising along and you were getting perma-spotted by a
I was so mad.
you could launch the planes and find your nemesis, and then you could drop on them and hurt them. And then you didn't have, it wasn't like in Kearsarge where you're probably going to miss with the rockets. You could just crunch things with these bombs. And so there were some balancing changes made, as they like to say at Wargaming. The ship was nerfed, and that made the bombs a lot less toxic to small ships. So I would contend nowadays you would say, well, go use these on cruisers and battleships, kind of like we've been saying on everything else.
You can still hit a destroyer with them, but you won't get the big hits you used to get. Like
I got good hits.
I remember I'm having flashbacks to a battle on Hotspot where we were fleeing from that multi-island cap on the east side, and I was running away in a Gearing or a Hayate or whatever weird destroyer I was playing. Maybe not weird, but whatever destroyer I was playing. And I got dropped by Louisiana for 12,500 damage. And I was just like, what is going on, guy?
Yeah.
I gave up all my hit points fighting your dumb friends, and then you come over here and swat me with these airplanes. What the heck, man? I was pretty spicy. And then it was like the next week when Wargaming was like, yeah, we heard that Clyde got bombed that one time, so we're gonna nerf. I wish that was the case. But like it was like pretty quick after that they got nerfed. And that was not the only time that happened to me. It was very frustrating for destroyer players when Louisiana bombers run would go really well like that for the Louisiana captain.
Yeah, and I don't know if they ever changed it, but on the Nebraska, which is not good.
Let me bring up the not good one real quick.
Yeah, Nebraska. Neither of us like Nebraska. I don't think maybe they've buffed it, but like I don't like Nebraska. Its bombers, if I remember correctly, are dive bombers. They do the whole up and down animation.
They do. They shoot up in the air, or at least they did last I played it.
So they did last time I played it. And I don't have any intent of ever going back and playing it for any reason, especially now that I don't have to knock off snowflakes or special awards.
Yeah.
So it had, this one's not great because it kind of looks like Hildebrand, doesn't it? Right? There's a flight deck and there's no guns in the back.
Hey.
And you only have guns in the front. And
it does look like a Hildebrand. I do like I love this, honestly, just from an aesthetic perspective. You got the two big red turret, specifically with this camo, and then you got the three turrets on each side. It looks really great.
Six-gun battleship.
It plays terribly though. I do not like this boat.
And it's not fun. And so like if you're like, I gotta go level through that line nowadays, you're like, okay, so first step, I gotta play Colorado how many times? Because there's so many how many offshoots are there of the American battleship line now, right? And so like you're playing Colorado and then you go over to this thing and you're like, man, I miss Colorado.
Here's a question for you though, and this is not at all related to today's topic.
Okay.
Not Kearsarge. What's this boat called? Nebraska.
Nebrahoma,
or Kansas. I know.
North Carolina. Next question.
Hey, hold on. That's a good ship, and like I can't let you just take that one. I think I would probably play Nebraska, but it looks like Brand also chooses North Carolina. I really don't like Kansas. They're both bad though.
Kansas really is not my jam either. I'll tell you though, they've tweaked Kansas and Minnesota since I had to play them.
Kansas did get a couple of
like
perks.
Those ships are different than when they came out and we played them. Like
I'm still playing Kansas because I still hate it.
Kansas was such a bad experience, and I didn't enjoy Minnesota a whole lot back then. Now I don't know if Kansas still plays like Kansas plays in my mind. I'd probably rather play this, but I really didn't enjoy this one.
To be fair, I agree with you. This is not a good boat. I would rather not play. I would free XP both of them, and I probably will finish free XP in Kansas. Yeah. But anyway, that's a totally random question. It has nothing to do with today's show.
Nebrahoma doesn't, or Nebraska, I call it Nebrahoma, doesn't have like the fun that is, and even can you show the people Delaware? So Delaware is the tier 9.
Yeah, let me grab Delaware here.
Delaware is more like Louisiana in layout. It's like an Iowa hull. It has Iowa guns. It has, again, a weird rear turret. Isn't this the one where the rear turret's only like 2 barrels or something?
Yeah, there's a 2 3s and a 2. So 2 triples so
that's
up front
kind of
and
weird.
a double barrel out
back. But it's laid out more like the 10, and it plays more comfortably. And then its bombers are that like, it doesn't have dive bombers. It does like the flyover HE drop, which is cool. And has been, I'm sure these were nerfed or changed as well. They were never as good as Louisiana's to begin with.
Right.
But they're better than Nebraska's. Nebraska's just like a thing you have to endure.
Well, and part of the thing that like the rear turrets on both Delaware and Louisiana don't have great angles necessarily, but I will say that having the turret out back and the 2 turrets up front makes them feel like regular old battleships. So like when you're not carriering, you can battleship like a normal person, whereas Nebrahoma, Nebraska really struggles by having only the 2 turrets up front, which is kind of rough.
Yeah, and on both of these, on Delaware and Louisiana, the forward angles for the rear turret kind of stink, but the kiting angles aren't terrible. Which is kind of what you'd end up doing probably in these anyway, playstyle wise. Yeah. And I will say that while these both have tumors like Kearsarge, I don't feel like the tumors is long. Maybe it is. Maybe it's longer. I don't know. It doesn't feel as easily like the one on Kearsarge. Look how thin
this wedge is, though. That's not as tall.
Yeah, right. It's not as.
Let me check Louisiana.
Big. Like, look how high they brought up that thicker armor, freeboard armor, right? Like, it comes up the freeboard and up the deck around the barbettes and stuff. It's like,
yeah. And then this one's pretty thin too. Let me bring up Kearsarge again just for a comparison.
Yeah.
I'm going to pin this one so I can find it again. And then here's
Kearsarge.
So
there's Louisiana.
Look at the size of this thing. And this is the 19 millimeter. So when we go back to Louisiana, it's 19 and then a little bit thicker.
Yeah, look at, do you like being farmed by Kitakaze? Yeah. And then you go to the other one and it's like, no, I didn't. We changed it.
Yep. Like, and look at this. You've got 38 mil wrapped up around it. So you do still have some superstructure, but it's a lot less.
It's less. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't played this ship in a long time though.
On this side, it's a bit less too. I liked Louisiana. So when I played through Delaware, it was in the tier 9 season of clan battles, and they allowed us to run these boats in clan battles.
That's right. It was Delaware that we used in clans. It wasn't this one, was it?
It was Delaware. And then I think there was a 1 week in a follow-on or a previous season where you could run Louisiana.
There a tier 10 season where you could sneak? Because I thought I remembered playing
it was like
Louisiana
2 weeks. I know we did. I know it is because I remember we played against Overlord Bo's clan, which is totally outmatching us, by the way. Bo, great clan. You should not play us. We're not that level. Yeah, but I remember Bo himself was in Louisiana. It's not
Bo's fault, and it's definitely not our fault.
That's it's not. It's not their fault. It's not our fault.
Future content.
07 to Overlord Bo and friends. But like the Louisiana, I remember him bombing me in his Louisiana in clan battles. Yeah. So it's a thing that we did do for. I think it was just a couple of weeks one season. They let us try it.
Yeah. Now it's always banned.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this line, I think this line when it came out, now we're starting to now we're starting to get to the point where when I ask the question, was this kind of the ruination of World of Warships for a while? I think this one was closer. Like the way those bombers worked was pretty gnarly.
I had a bigger problem with this ship coming out than the ones we've talked about so far. So now maybe that's because I was the put upon class. I like to play destroyers, and this thing could just go up there and wall up a destroyer with a good, well-placed bomb drop. And so maybe that was my personal fun, was being, threatened there. So I felt like Louisiana was a bit more impactful. But boy, look around now. When's the last time you saw Louisiana in battle?
You don't see them that often. You'll see people leveling like Nebraska and Delaware more than I'll see people playing Louisiana. And when I do see it, I don't think about it.
It doesn't
bother me. It's not
bother
a thing
me.
where I'm like, I need to be aware that there's a Louisiana on that flank. No.
No, it's just a battleship.
It's not like, some jerk brought a Thunderer. Like, it's not like, or nowadays it's more like, there's a St. Vincent or there's something over there that you actually think about. Like, I just don't feel like, and I could pull up the played numbers on these. Maybe part of it too when they came out was because it was a tech line and they did an early access event, and so maybe it was proliferation that made it feel bad. There was just more of them. Plus it was an American ship.
Which, at least on NA server, that means it's going to be popular.
American battleships are like, we gotta have them, and so maybe
corn-fed Southern boys are going to I we're going to get them, And
but I never play these. Like, I never go. It's like what? I never play World of Warships. But anyway, like, I never go play.
Well, you play.
Not true.
You test.
I play a lot of World of Warships.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Play ships. I don't play anything but test ships right now. I haven't really played a lot of randoms. People on the stream are like, who's this guy? Like, I don't come around anymore. I never call. I never write. But I have
you're world famous from this show, obviously. From the 38 people who watch our YouTube program. Hello, all of you. We're glad to have you here. Sorry, I lost you there.
Anyway.
You got a little robot-y there. Can I get a voice check? Hang on.
Oh, not a problem.
Yeah, maybe I'm having trouble. How's the internet doing? I think we're okay. Hopefully we have Skada still. I have a nice green voice connected thing, so I think I'm okay. And I don't have any dropped frames in chat, so or in stream, it looks like. So I think we're okay. You may have lost Mr. Hurt. Hey! Thanks for the bits, Mr. Deadhorse. Oh, I have no idea. That's a great question.
Hello?
Georg Hoffman. Hey, there you are. You're back.
I disconnected, and then it took forever for Discord to reconnect. So I've heard some things have been going on with Discord lately.
Yeah, finding a new server.
Yeah, right. I don't know if it's oversaturated or what. Like,
every now and again, I've had those problems before too, though. So I don't think it's a new problem or anything.
But yeah, so like I was saying, like, I'm still in the end credits. But anyhow, like, I haven't played the ship in a really long time. So, but again, I don't feel like you see tons of them out there. Maybe I do, and I just don't recognize them anymore. I don't care. But at the time when this came out, those bombers were spicy.
They were,
and those bombers
to say about them.
And those bombers upset vocal destroyer players.
I had my note cards ready. I went over to Reddit.
There's a lot of there's a lot of battleship players that'll be like, well, I don't like carriers and plane spotting, but it's like, really? Sure. And then there's a lot of cruiser players that are like, I don't like, they don't like HE spam. And there's cruiser players, well, I don't necessarily like carriers and plane spotting. Okay, but really, come on, we all know it's mostly destroyer players complaining about it, right? Because they don't want to be spotted.
It was like they didn't want to be spotted, and I'll say we, whatever. Destroyers don't like being spotted, and they're really sensitive to it, even if maybe it isn't that big a deal. I think at initial release, especially for things that are highly available, tech 3 ships, coal ships, that kind of stuff, there is a period of time where it's just better to not play the class that's being put upon. And that sucks because it's your favorite class and you want to play it. Like, hey, why are these jerks coming in and ruining my fun? Give it a little
last
time.
month it was like, do you like getting secondaried by a lot of Iparangas, right? Like that was all over the game too, right? So like,
I actually didn't play Iparanga much because of that, and now I'm playing it like. I just got.
I played it in ops.
I wailed for it.
I got all the ship XP I needed for the Los Andes done in ops,
That's
and it was
fun.
fun there.
Yeah. That's a good place to use it
So
too.
anyway, yeah. So like Louisiana, they're fine.
Yeah.
Like it's an okay battle. It's a good experience. It's not bad. If you've already played through the American Battleship original line and you have Montana,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know what I really want to do is go through Colorado again.
And you don't.
I would probably. No, you know what? I can't say this because I think Vermont's a better thing to get than Louisiana.
See, oh, that's interesting. I haven't gotten to Vermont yet because I don't like Kansas so much. But I didn't dislike Louisiana. I liked playing Delaware. I liked playing it in clan battles. And I'll even say I liked the gun part because it's kind of Iowa-like you said earlier, right? So like it's just an American battleship when I'm out there using the guns. And I remember having some big salvos in clan battles, and I leveled through it fast because of CBs. But I didn't dislike this line. I legitimately ground through all 3 of these ships in this line, no problem, and had a fun time doing it.
I don't want to derail this even
with the
more,
exception
but
of
if I was
Nebraska.
going to say, hey, Clyde, let's just be clear. Clyde plays every class, not a massive historical battleship main. If I said, hey, Clyde, rank tier 10 American battleships in your order of favoriteness.
In my wisdom.
And you haven't played Vermont, and I don't think you've played Louisiana, have you? Or no, you have Louisiana.
I have Louisiana, and I've played it. I like it. It's fine.
But like, I don't I don't know where it would, like, for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Like, there's a lot of ships that like. I'm not a huge Montana guy, but I'd probably play Montana over this.
Yeah, I would too.
I know I'm not a huge Ohio guy, but I'd probably play Ohio over this. I'm not a huge Vermont guy, but I'd probably play Vermont over this.
Yeah.
Would you play Wisconsin instead of this?
Yeah. I think I would play
Rhode Island instead of this.
I think I would definitely play Montana and Wisconsin over this, and everything else is maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I like this boat. I like this boat better than Ohio, but that's because I have a hard time with Ohio right now because Ohio wallows around and it's slow, and I get bored driving Ohio. I know people love Ohio. I'm not mad at Ohio. I just need to play it more.
Way I feel about it.
But
it's
like,
not my jam.
I'd probably play this before I played Ohio, which is weird to say. And it's not because I want planes real bad. It's because I like Montana, and this is almost Montana.
Okay.
But I'd play Montana as my number 1 American battleship. That'd be my top one for sure.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and then when you start I would really have a hard time not considering Wisconsin as like the best tier 10 American battleship now. And I like Rhode Island a lot, even though it has small.
I need
guns,
more battles in it, but I like Rhode Island.
I like the way it plays because I think it's fun because it's, but it's got junk armor. But anyway, so like there's a lot of choices.
Yeah.
And there's probably some tier 10 American battleship I forgot.
BA Montana. No, you got most of the list. You have all the ones. You've listed all the ones that I own and Vermont, which I think is. I think that's the full set. But
so like, but as far as the 3 tech tree ones go, I think this is the 3rd best of them.
I can't speak to Vermont, but okay. I think Montana. I'd still play Montana first, so I'll agree with that until I
Vermont's
have
guns
more information.
Vermont's guns are just crushing, right?
Yeah.
You've used those 457s on Ohio, and you don't like them as much there, but when you have more of them and they're accurate,
that would make a difference.
Yeah,
and I'm looking forward to Vermont. I just need a free XP. The stuff that's in my way.
Someday they'll put out the super ship version of Louisiana, and it will be like,
oh no,
what state haven't they used?
It'll be like, I don't know what it'll be.
There's not it'll honestly, there's not a whole there. It's gonna have to be like the Oregon because they've used like every dang other state.
Idaho and Oregon, but Nevada's a real ship, and they should use real Nevada. Oh, Hawaii, that's an interesting pick. And this is not important. We're over time here. We should keep going.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, so Louisiana, they're fine. Oh, geez, Keaton, that's terrible. Louisiana's fine. I had a fun time playing these boats in clan battles, and they're probably fun to play in randoms too. I need to log some more battles in Louisiana, but I like it well enough. Like you said, though, would I choose it over Montana? That's hard to choose for me, because I do like Montana quite a bit. But all right, let's pick our next one here. Issei, we're finally to the boat we started it all with. I think we've said a lot about Issei real quick, so I'll give a brief summary, and then we can kind of have a conversation. Again, I think Issei's kind of an underpowered battleship, but it's got easy to use airplanes. I think literally this boat is here to teach you that hybrids are a thing and how you can use them. And it kind of taught wargaming how to build hybrids, or maybe ways that players might react to hybrids too, because it was the first one. So I think Issei is interesting. I think if you get one out of a Santa crate and you've never played a hybrid before, you should give it a try, because it's, it's in your port. Just go play it and see what it's all about. But Issei, do I think you need to rush out and get one? Is it an overpowered ship or anything to play at tier 6? No, it's definitely not. But I think it really is. It's a trainer to teach you about hybrids and to see if you like the idea, or maybe even to trick you into trying a carrier if you feel uncomfortable with that kind of a thing. So that might be the right kind of way, or the right kind of player who might be looking at Issei. As you mentioned earlier, Issei is a real ship, and they really did this thing. You can look up pictures of it on the internet, and so it was out there running ops and things and flying airplanes and all that. And there she is. So I don't know, thoughts about Issei that we haven't covered, or maybe recapping the ones we have covered.
I think kind of what this angle in this picture is a pretty good thing. Like, so this was real, and look how hard.
I thought this was a good picture. Yeah.
How hard it would be to use those rear turrets, right? And so that's real when you play this thing. The rear turrets are kind of blocked by the flight deck, and they're hard to get involved. And then the turret traverse is super slow because it's Japanese, and so like getting the turrets back around makes it hard. So it's really kind of a drag to engage all the guns on this. Because the torpedo bombers are easy to use because they drop a bunch of torpedoes and they don't do a lot of damage. You just fan them out and you're like, yay. But yeah, it's a weird thing. I think some of the design logic in this that makes it not overpowered, in my opinion, at the tier, is some of this and how it was really built, where you can't engage those rear guns. And what we just saw on things like Kearsarge and the Delaware and the Louisiana is we slap the flight deck right in the middle and we can have turrets in the back and it can still play like a battleship.
Yeah.
And it makes those ships more viable to play in the game. But I think if they had some more of these kind of limitations, then they might, they would probably be even considered like, crappier. But I think it's cool. Yeah. This ship's neat because it's like historically a thing if you're into that. And it's not like, we used to have fun playing this. I haven't played it in a long time. And I don't remember ever having like, it's not like you're going out and having like monster games in it.
No.
In my recollection, it's just
Joey does point out you can go bully low tier DDs, especially low tier seal clubbing T61s and stuff. What a fun ship to go give those guys a hard time with, as long as you're staying safe. But
drop into a low tier match and there's a kamikaze on the other team. Go find him and launch and drop your torps at him. Let him drive through him, right? Go find him for your friend in the Omaha that's on your team. That's go do that. And because more than likely at that low tier, the CV that you have on your team isn't doing any of that spotting. He's learning how to play CVs, which means just go find battleships and farm them for damage, so you get big numbers and no impact. It is what it is. But yeah, I think Issei is relatively inexpensive. As a tier 6, you just go buy it. It's fine. I can't hear you, buddy.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, man. I'm over here muted. I said, what did I say? Yes. Arsenal says, who am I talking to? Arsenal, I am talking to Skada Hurt. He's a super tester and friend of the show. So he's here just to BS with us about ships. If you've not
I'm also the executive producer, damn it.
If you've not heard Skada's dulcet tones, you can. Oh no, you're good, man. I didn't understand your question. I just didn't understand your question. If you haven't heard his dulcet tones before, now you know. Welcome, and you can of course hear him on all the other episodes of Ship Show, which are up on YouTube as well. So if you guys are new to the show, if this is the first one you're watching, whether you're live here or whether you're on YouTube later on, you can check out other episodes of Ship Show and go hear more of us talking way too long about stuff that's only mildly interesting. Yeah. Oh, Skada, pronounced Skada, their arsenal. Anyway, yeah, the blue, what was I saying? I was saying, yeah, is this a boat you really have to go get? No, it's totally optional, but it's an option if you're interested in it. It is, as you mentioned, a real steel ship, and that's kind of cool for collectors. It's cheap, so that's helpful. C's made a comment about how the blue camo slaps, and it does.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. It's the one I run on it. The planes look really dope in blue. I believe somebody told me that they made these planes up, that they're not real. Is that, I don't know if that's true. Naval historians, please check that out and hit me in the comments below on YouTube or in Twitch if you're going to do it real fast.
Yeah, if Drakitafel could, after he watches this, if he could just throw
Can you imagine old Drax watching my channel?
Yeah, great.
He's too busy traveling around to museum ships to do that. But if anybody knows, let me know. Yes, Madritsky, how you doing, by the way? Welcome. I saw you chatting earlier with us. This is the Issei.
I feel like Issei is most likely a thing now that somebody gets because they got like a tier 6 ship box from like community points.
For sure.
And they opened it hoping they would get like a T61 or something, and they should know better. And they get this and they're like, but like, hey, it's not the worst case scenario. Like, go give it a try. It's kind of fun. And then you'll get to play 8s and then you'll never play it again. And it's fine.
I will say playing up against 8s is rough. I'll also say, at least in my experience, and my numbers are not great in this boat, I liked the HE better than the AP because I felt up tiered a lot. And the HE does work. It is hard, as you pointed out, to get all the guns pointed at the same target. You can do some spotting for yourself in this. You can turn your gun, point your ship a certain way, make sure you turn your mouse where you want your guns to be, take off, fly over there, strike the ship, come back, unload your guns. You can shoot, launch your planes, come back, you'll be reloaded, you can shoot. And while you're waiting on that, you can probably get your planes launched after a little bit of a wait there. So, and you can do that with a lot of the battleship flavored hybrids, right? Issei is certainly no exception there. Brand comments again that it's a real boat for sure, dude. Anyway, not a ton more to say about Issei. It's come up a lot in conversation tonight because it is really the grandfather of all of these ships, at least in the game. And certainly, as you pointed out, again, a real boat that probably was the grandfather of some real boats as well. Any final thoughts on Issei? Otherwise, I'm going to hit the space bar. We're going to pick up. I think we're on to our last one, which is Hildebrand. And this was totally random.
Kind of funny how that randomly put 6, that there. 7, 8. Now everybody knows that Select-O-Matic is not random at all.
Please don't introduce that idea. It's totally random.
He's got a button under the table like a roulette wheel.
Why would I put the button under the table? Nobody can see the keyboard. Yeah. Hildebrand. Now, have you gotten this one out of a box yet?
Yep.
Okay. You animal.
It was my second box.
It's my second box, bro.
It wasn't my second box, I can assure you.
Hildebrand just came out. Everybody's playing Hildebrand, or at least they were. It's already died down quite a bit, thankfully. But there were a lot of Hildebrands for that first week after it was made available. I'm going to pull it up here. What do you want to say? I'm going to give you the mic to start with Hildebrand. This is still Issei. Hold on.
Hildebrand is the first tier 10 premium German cruiser introduced to World of Warships.
Oh boy. That's a great way to make friends on the internet. Hindenburg
players rejoice. They've given you a premium now at tier 10.
Oh no.
Hildebrand is based off of like the Aegir or Siegfried hull. It's pretty apparent if you're familiar with either of those boats that are both tier 9. Siegfried's for research points, Aegir's for coal. They've been around for a number of years now. The 2 turrets up front are off of those boats. They are 305 millimeter 3-barrel turrets that fire pretty good AP and pretty bad HE, which is the flavor of Germany. But they're relatively accurate. They have cruiser accuracy and stuff, and they're for 305s or battle cruiser dispersion or whatever. They're fine.
Yeah,
the ship laid out.
I've gotten some Citadels with them. They punch.
Yeah, as you can see, something that's different here than like on Aegir when he was on that zoom level. You can see the weird casemate secondaries up front there.
Oh yeah, I'll find those again.
This actually has like a bunch of funky secondaries on it that are those casemate secondaries are like right off Schlieffen. Those ones up front, those round ones. So those are like weird. Those are like 150s. And then the ones behind it there, everybody recognizes those. Those are like the old school German, like small caliber secondaries that, most prevalent is the Z42 main turrets. Those ones on the side there. Those are off of like GK.
Side.
or maybe they're not off GK, but they're off like Freddy and stuff. Like they're on a bunch of ships. Those are funky little guns, and they're like the main guns on Z42.
Right.
Not that you should build this for secondaries, but you may take pack a punch on your captain to improve the damage of the aerial torpedoes, which is your primary armament. And so that means your secondaries are going to reach farther. And I have had them shoot at destroyers that come around islands on me and stuff.
It startled me the first time it happened.
Yeah, these have this thing has German hydros, much like the Siegfried and Egger do. It does not have any ship-based torpedoes like those do. So you have no hull-mounted torpedoes. So your only hull-mounted weapons are those secondaries and then those six guns forward that don't have an incredible reload. And you have no way to defend your backside because your turrets, obviously, there's nothing out back.
Speaking of the reload on the artillery here in my build, 13.2 seconds, 18.5 kilometer range, 305s, as you've already mentioned, right? So they should be pretty familiar guns to anybody who's played with those 305s on other German ships in terms of their basic performance.
Call back to the Mang Chong reference I made earlier because it's also an A gear.
Yes. By the way, Iron Light, I think, called your bluff on that one. Knew right away what it was. Good job, Iron Light.
Yeah, good for him. So anyway, but that's not why everybody talks about this boat or why everybody bought it this month.
No,
it's because this is the first hybrid
that has this, shouldn't I?
Two different kinds of planes or two different kinds of attack squadrons, as far as I can recall. Everything else we've talked about to this point, you have one kind of plane you can launch that does one kind of attack. And Hildebrand has two. It has torpedo bombers and HE bombers.
It does.
The torpedo bombers reload extremely fast. The cooldown on them is 70 seconds. It's really low. I don't know off the top of my head.
68.4 in my build, which is pretty darn fast.
The HE bombers, it's like 3 odd minutes. I think base is like 4 minutes. It's really long.
Mine is 256 seconds, so it's about 4 minutes, and that's with some building.
Yeah. 256. Well, 300 seconds is 5 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, 240 is 4 minutes, right? So it's just over 4 minutes.
Yeah. So anyway, so those take you don't get many uses of those in a game.
No, and that's a good thing. We'll talk about that.
That's a good thing. And so you have these wacky torpedo bombers that you can launch often. And when you're playing this, you launch torpedo planes and you go off and you do your mission, drop your torpedoes. And when you get back to your boat, a lot of times they're really close to being ready to go again.
How long does one of those flights take? What is that like? 40 to 70 seconds, probably.
As if just like all tactical squadrons that all hybrids have, the reload starts as soon as you leave the deck.
Exactly.
So, it makes them come back really quick. Now the torpedo bombers themselves, you only have 3 planes. The planes are not stout.
No, they are pretty frail, aren't they?
The whole flight has like 5,400 hit points or something. They're not in my own personal experience at tier 10, when you drop with those planes on most things like battleships and whatnot, you're probably only going to get 2 torpedoes off. You're probably going to lose one of the 3 when you go into the attack.
That's been my experience too. At first I was losing 2 because I was playing like a potato. But then I realized that I just checked 5,200 hit points is how much the whole squadron has, at least in my build. And then I learned how to really only lose 1 when I attack most of the time.
Yeah.
That makes you a lot more effective.
If you actually get all 3 off against like 8s, you probably can get all 3 off against 8s, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
And get three of these torpedoes in the water. They don't have a huge alpha, but it's 3 torpedoes, and then you're coming back again relatively quickly if you want to. And so I think that might be where I hand over to you. I think that might be part of why this has been so disruptive.
It has. And what's interesting with this one is because I hear, let me back up, I guess. This is a thing I've been trying to figure out how to say in good words, and I don't have a great way to say it. There's some math I need to do. A lot of people talk about how you have infinite planes with tactical squadrons. And while I understand that you don't lose planes. You still have a cooldown, and the cooldown is the way that they regulate somebody from having infinite planes. You don't have infinite planes. You have the number of planes that you get in 20 minutes divided by the number of minutes and seconds it takes you to create those planes, right? So there's a static number of planes that you could possibly have in every 20-minute battle. If you look at a regular aircraft carrier, it's the exact same thing with extra steps. It's how many planes do I have right now, plus how many planes can I earn in a 20-minute period. That's the total number of planes that I have, right? And so there's a lot of that being shouted into the void right now. And if you guys want to shout about Hildebrand, first of all, I want to point out you are welcome to do so. I think you can absolutely have a valid complaint about this aircraft carrier for the reasons we're talking about. But the way to shout about it is not to say it's got infinite planes, even though I know that's really convenient to say, and it kind of makes your point, but it kind of doesn't. What it has is planes all the time. And that feels like that's the same thing. But like the point here is that there's no break between the planes at all, right? And so like a captain can basically run torpedo bombs all the time, or torpedoes, I should say, all the time with their torpedo bombers. And then when they have that 4-minute charge up happens on the bombers, they can run those. And those bombers, by the way, we've focused on the torpedo planes so far. Those bombers hit really hard. They hit as hard or harder than the B-25s do on Hornet. So if you're looking to hit something really hard with bombs,
much smaller drop pattern.
And it's a circle too. It's not an ellipse.
It's
so you can
if you're
hit.
familiar with like the Graf Zeppelin circle or the Lowenhart, the Tier 6 banned German carrier circle.
Yeah.
It's a small circle. You can come at any angle. You can get all the bombs on small targets. And there's been plenty of content posted on Reddit.
Oh, for sure.
And all over YouTube of the destroyers getting like dev struck by these bombers, which mathematically is totally probably feasible. Realistically in game probably doesn't happen as often as the people pushing that outrage bait would want you to believe.
Right.
But
especially
that's okay
now compared to a week ago, right?
Yeah, that's okay. Your experience is your reality.
For sure.
I've played this ship a lot. Not, I'm not a super unicom by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
I don't remember ever dev striking a destroyer with the bombers. I certainly use them on destroyers exclusively.
That's interesting.
They are very good at using on destroyers.
I did one drop on a DD. I've only played a handful of battles since its release, but and I did blap a destroyer with one once. But I've also had big salvos against parked cruisers and battleships, 10, 12, 14,000 damage.
And they do a lot of fire, and they'll catch fire. They do really cheap bombs, right? But I've used them I've used them late match, like, oh, they're up, it's late match, there's one DD left, let me go find him so we can get this over with.
That's the one time I did it was in that scenario.
Yeah, I've used them for that. Because of the cooldown on them, less of that idea that, so like if I'm in a CV early game, I'm hunting destroyers because I want to win. If I take out the other team's eyes, we will win.
Right.
We should all understand that about how World of Warships works.
Destroyers are critical to your victory, and if you don't have
your
any,
teams,
you're at
if your team's battleship players, if your team's battleship players are spamming F7, you're probably losing.
I need intelligence data. Yeah.
So anyway, but you can't do that at the start of the match. You can spot them with the torpedo planes that are there all the time. You can drop the torpedo planes on destroyers, and you might land some torpedoes on destroyers. I have. I mean, I've done that. It is a thing. They're not extremely fast torpedoes, but not every destroyer player is dodging well, and it is what it is, right? That's just how the game works. But yeah, those bombers are pretty toxic versus destroyers. I imagine, especially since they reserve the right to nerf premiums now, which they didn't used to, but they have for 3-4 years now. I only can assume that after this German Unity event, they're going to nerf those bombers.
You think
they're going to do like they did with They're going to do like they did with Louisiana. They're just going to make the reticle bigger.
Yeah, and the dispersion worse or something.
And they'll still be good to do what I use them for, which is mopping up a half-dead just DD late in the game. But they won't have the possibility to do like a 25k damage hit on a DD,
which is crazy.
Yeah, maybe in a patch or two.
Asta 69 or Hasta, depending on if you're saying the H or not, says, I get killed a lot in a DD by spotting Hildebrands more than the bombs, though. For sure. Spotting is a very good way to get killed. If you're a DD and you're being spotted by anybody's aircraft, that's a huge problem for sure.
And I think a lot of the and I know a lot of the stuff I've read online, people complaining about this ship, is that you had a kind of a perfect storm here where it's the first German Tier 10 cruiser.
Yeah.
It was sold for cash money.
Essentially, yeah.
Whales and people who love the era went all in for this because they have to get every German ship, or they it's their thing.
Yeah.
And then compound that with that these torpedo planes are available all the time. And so good, bad, or indifferent, if you're, as far as being a cruiser player or a CV player or a hybrid player, you're up in these torpedo planes all the time and you're spotting destroyers. And if you're hanging around above them and just spotting, you're doing your job. You're doing a job, right? You're spotting a destroyer to help your team take it out. If there was a CV on your team, they should be doing the same kind of thing. If there was a Des Moines on your team, its radar might do something similar. But it's persistent on this, right? Because you're always up there with these planes. Like, imagine that they put out a Tier 10 cruiser with a 12-kilometer radar that had no cooldown. You're just like, I need the radar all the time. Like, yeah. And so that everybody would be like, what are you thinking? You can't do that. And so that's kind of how this works. You have to have some wherewithal to go find the DD. But if you find the DD and you sit on top of it and just circle, you're going to make a bad time for it. And if your team is not totally inept, they're going to shoot that DD.
Yeah.
And so that does suck. I get that. And then compound that with the popularity of this last week because of, I have to have it because it's German. I have to have it because I love the era. All those reasons that people wail on German stuff. Yeah. You saw these matchmaking screens where there'd be like 3 on each team.
Gosh,
so
dude, Reddit was
somebody
just
go to a Tier 10 match. Somebody goes into a Tier 10 match and there's like 3 of these things and a carrier and a sub. And now the guy who's out there in his Jaeger.
You're describing my pain.
Now this guy that's out there in his Jaeger that thought he was just going to go out there and never be spotted and torpedo his heart till his heart's content with his unlimited torpedoes. If we're talking about unlimited ordnance.
Speaking of unlimited ordnance.
Now it really sucks because he has no AA and there's like 4 planes and 4 types of planes and a submarine that can sit on his chest. And then that's a really bad experience.
Exactly.
And so that kind of brings you around to the concept of like, with hybrids, do hybrids need to be looked at differently by the matchmaker and limited?
Let me just click this little button right here. You're jumping right to one of our questions.
Sure.
Here's the question, Skada. The player base's jimmies seem rustled.
They certainly do.
By the recent release of Hildebrand. Do hybrids pose a problem for matchmaking and random battles? What about ranked? You were wandering right into this, and I saw that I have a button here that says jimmies, and I wanted to push it because I remembered what this question was about.
I mean,
because this is the first hybrid that can basically be flying all the time.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of feedback come back from the player base on Reddit, in the official Discord, in chat on official streams, and that kind of a thing. People used to complain about hybrids needing to be matched in the past, and we talked about a lot of ships tonight, and we said, did this boat ruin everything? No. And I still stand by that. I think the other boats, I don't really care if they match my Tone against another Tier 8 hybrid, right? I don't know that needs to be done. Hildebrand, on the other hand, can be running planes all the time, and that's what a carrier does. Does Hildebrand need to be treated like a carrier, or does Hildebrand need to be adjusted so it can't be treated like a carrier? And I think right now, Wargaming's caused a problem. I don't know if they have a solution in mind for it, or if they just think it'll go away because people won't play Hildebrand that much in 6 months. But what do you think?
As far as this question.
Yeah, and feel free to answer a slightly different version of the question if that's better. All of the
other hybrids we've talked about.
Yeah.
When we talked about the cruisers, for example, we talked about Chikuma II and we talked about Tone. We talked about how they're pretty good cruisers with a lot of functionality, and then they have these planes on them. When we started with Komissar, I talked about how at Tier 10 Komissar has great guns and does a lot of stuff and is a really powerful cruiser, in my opinion. Oh yeah, and it has the planes. on this
Right.
ship.
Right.
My opinion, again, I'm not Super Unicum.
Right.
I'm
Couple of
just a
average
normal
guys,
player.
right?
Okay.
Let's be
In my
realistic.
opinion, Hildebrand is a junk cruiser. It has 6 gun. It has good armor. But 6 guns forward that have a 15, 16-second reload or whatever it is. It ended up at. I think it was lower. And they
It's
changed it. I can't remember.
in my build, it's 13.2.
Okay,
So it's not too bad.
13.2. 6 guns forward. You can't defend your aft. You don't want to
there's
kite
no
in
guns
it.
out
Like
back.
its
That's true.
concealment is nothing. Its concealment's not amazing. It's good, but it's not amazing. Has no torpedoes. You've got hydros, but like, I don't think it's a great cruiser. Okay, I think Komissar at tier 10. I can assure you that the first time I played Hildebrand, my thoughts were, man, this is the same tier as Komissar. Like, that was what I thought, right? But I'm thinking of, is it a cruiser that launches planes? The thing with Hildebrand is a carrier that is got a cruiser armament
It
in the
feels
cruiser
that way,
slot.
doesn't it?
It's the first one of these that, through the design, in my opinion, came out the other way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of the other ships we've talked about, we've joked for years with them that, oh, guys in the back playing as Delaware like it's a midway, and he's,
I mean, that happened to me in the game before we started this conversation, right? There was a dude in Louisiana playing it like a carrier.
That sucks.
I was like, bro, I need you to help me. I'm over there tangling with, I'm fighting 3 raccoons in my front yard.
It's a battleship first, man. Yeah, it's a battleship first.
And I'm like,
but Hildebrand's, in my opinion, again, I'm not Chad Unicum. I'm sure there's some dude who's, I bet if I went to YouTube now, there's some guy who's probably taken Hildebrand out and had 200,000 damage and not used the planes once.
Yeah.
And it's just,
I will say the guns work. I've gotten some Citadels with the guns.
Sure. Yes.
The guns will hit.
Me too.
And they'll smash stuff. They're not bad guns. You pointed out that their arrangement is a little bit complicated because there's nothing behind you. That's true.
Yep.
There's only 6 of them. That can be an issue. But you can do good things with 305mm German AP. Sure. Everyone knows this, right? It's totally true. But if you're right, this feels more like a CV than anything else.
Yeah, but if I want that experience, I'd rather play A-Gear, or I'd rather, you know what I mean? Like, or I'd rather play Odin, or I'd rather any of the other German ships that have those guns, right? I'm not picking this ship because it's not like Komissar where I'm like, man,
you would
I
never
like
be
those guns.
I'd like to shoot the guns on Hildebrand. You're never even thinking about the guns when you pick Hildebrand from your ship.
Hildebrand's play style for me is get as close as I can to a cap, to a position that normally would have a radar cruiser in it.
Yeah.
I can slide the ship forward and get those turrets in play, and I launch my torpedo planes and I fly and I spot stuff. I drop and then I slide the ship. I have the ship slid forward so I can shoot the guns, and then I slide back a little bit and I launch the next set,
Yeah.
But it's truly, in my opinion, on the hybrid scale, it's way past the it's a hybrid to the it's a carrier in a cruiser body, to the amount that I kind of wonder. See, that's the thing, like, if you put it in the Matchmaker as a carrier, that wouldn't be fair either.
No, it would be bad the other way. It's its own thing. And it's more than any of the hybrids are, and it's less than any of the carriers are. And Wargaming is not going to do anything with it. They're going to leave it alone. And I don't know that that's the wrong decision, but it does mean that it will lead to situations where it feels bad, man. Right?
Yeah. They sold so many of them. And I think, again, we've talked about at this point, today is October 10th, 2024. So now the wave's kind of washed over. I don't think there's as many of them in the Matchmaker all the time, at least on NA, like there was a week or so ago. But there's a lot of them that got sold, and it was pretty gross when there was a lot of them in a game, and that wouldn't have been a time that I would be playing a destroyer. Like, and like I said, I intentionally was like, last weekend was like, I'm gonna go play 7s. I don't want to deal with that. I went and played other tiers, right? I just didn't want to see it. And so, like, I get why this ship in this incarnation is the one that we would say, oh yeah, that wrecked things. That was probably bad. But I do think it's a perfect storm of a premium that whales could buy, that people could get their hands on without a premium currency or without, steel or something like that. And then again, because it's German and it's a tier 10 cruiser, it attracts another layer of fans that are going to get it. And all of a sudden there's a ton of them in game.
All
So
the
back to the
big German ship
discussion,
fans. Yeah.
do they pose a problem for matchmaking and randoms? I think in this scenario, pretty gross that teams would have a lot of these all at once because they were flooding the matchmaker.
Yeah.
In general, the other hybrids we've talked about, I kind of think are what they are, but maybe they shouldn't be allowed to be divisioned. They can be in a division, but not. There should be a hybrid check in a div.
Yep.
So that you can't have 3 in a div or 2, frankly.
I think
just
you're
like
onto
you can't.
something.
I think if you like you and I've done this, we've divved up in 3 Issays back in the day, but I think
and 3 Kearsarges.
Did we do that?
You, me, and Brand once. It was awful.
Yeah, we probably lost, but that's fine. Like,
it was.
But
great.
I think there should be a checker on, at least for randoms as far as divisions go, where
Agreed.
like where I said I really don't want to run into the division of Unicum clan, Trips Toxic division of 3 hybrids or 3 Hildebrands, but I would say that in that regard, only 1 in a division. Do I think that they should be limited in the general matchmaker?
Yeah.
No, because I think it's over with now.
That's what I think
honestly
too.
I think it's come and gone.
Yeah.
Brand's
trying to remember when we did it. Multiple Kearsarges. I know we did at least 2 Brand. It was when Kearsarge B came out. I played Kearsarge.
Do I think that
is not important for the conversation?
Yeah. Do I think they should be balanced between teams though? That's another question, right? They don't balance radar cruisers between teams.
I was going to bring that up. So radar cruisers, they don't balance.
That's not balanced between teams.
Gunboat destroyers versus torpedo destroyers.
DDs versus that's not balanced between teams. Radar destroyers, not balanced between teams.
Yeah.
Radar battleships, not, so like.
And wargaming does work where they balance a radar cruiser against a non-radar cruiser, at least in a 12v12 random, right? The game's balanced for randoms. Is it balanced enough for everyone's take? Obviously not. That's why we get to have these conversations, right? But the concept of, your Nevsky versus my, I don't know. I can't even think of another tier 10 cruiser that doesn't have radar.
Sebastopol.
There you go. Siva. Those 2 boats arguably have played against one another, and they should be okay, right? Because they've given one more radar, they've given it less something else, et cetera, and so on. Hildebrand is a great example. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but yeah, like the idea is it should be fine. But players point at all this stuff: heavies and lights, as Brand just said, radars, hydros, torp boats versus gunboats. And they think that we need all of this matchmaking. Maybe we do. I mean, it'd be kind of cool if we could afford it, but I just don't think the player base is big enough to do that.
Yeah, it would slow down the matchmaker a fair amount. Then people complain about that day.
Well, and there'd be boats you just couldn't play because you like to play some terrible boat.
And so, that's how I feel about it in randoms. As far as like mode shuffle mode or something like that, I don't care.
Yeah, who cares? I do like your comment about division regulation, though. I think that's
yeah. If you're in a division in a random, I think there should only be 1 hybrid in that division. Personally, that's when I've seen some of the most heinous abuse of hybrids. Is extremely good player division all in same hybrid. Then it feels like a real bad time.
It feels like those guys just broke that whole match, which means that 21 other people got a weird, not real match, right?
And that is what it is. There's other scenarios. There's the old, Musashi tier 8 CV div thing that was a thing. There's all kinds of scenarios that divisions can cause that, but that's a thing I would not let the matchmaker. I would not let divisions. I would not let divisions form for randoms that allowed that.
What about hybrids in a division with an aircraft carrier? Same thing. I don't actually know what I think. I think same thing. I think.
So the only thing that I would say about that is that at least then you're guaranteed to have some planes on the other team spotting too.
Oh, that's true. You'll
Now
bring
you have
you're bringing
your CV's bringing extra planes in a Hildebrand into the game, but
Yeah.
at least you know the matchmaker's then going to put a tier 10 CV on the other team, and so there's planes coming both ways at least.
Yeah, that's true.
And
whereas it's no guarantee with the hybrid.
No guarantee with the hybrid. That at least would do that. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Yeah.
And in my head earlier when we were going through all these hybrids, I was thinking, oh, it'd be fun that we've never done, and now you can because there's enough of them in the right tiers. Is we could do a destroyer, cruiser, battleship hybrid division.
Ooh.
Somehow we've never done that, but that would be like, I would say, oh, that'd be a dumb fun thing we could do, where we take a Halford and a Chikuma II and a Delaware or a Kearsarge.
You pick one. Yeah.
Pick those three and be like, yeah, look at us, we're dumb and we all have planes. And that, in hindsight, as we're talking about this, it shouldn't let us do that. That's dumb. And we're not that great. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
Like,
that's kind of a weird thing. Like, because like on the one hand, like you just said, oh, that'd be kind of fun. And I thought to my immediate reaction before I even thought about it was, yeah, that would be kind of fun. And there's the idea of taking that fun away from people, because that is a fun thing to do. And I think when we talk about like, well, yeah, but Super Unicum shouldn't be allowed to do that. Well, we can't really have special rules for Super Unicums, right? That's dumb. We need to have
my version of the game we can.
Listen,
let's talk about clan battles.
Listen, I know, okay, but like at the same time, like, come on, we can't really do that. We know that's silly.
Yeah.
So like, maybe those kinds of things are kind of worth considering and talking about a little bit. I don't know. That's kind of
we don't need rules for me and not for thee is lame, and
that's not okay. Versa, we can't do that.
But while that's allowed, Yumi and Brand should totally do that. Like, because that sounds like it might be kind of fun to do.
All right. I don't know how.
And then as far as ranked goes, like I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't play ranked that much. I don't know if there's a bunch of hybrids in ranked. That sucks, I suppose.
I feel like I've never seen a hybrid in ranked, but that doesn't mean it isn't possible. So I'm sure.
Probably a thing.
Probably a thing. But based on what we said before, which was, let's not restrict them in the clan battle matchmaker, or in the regular matchmaker, excuse me. But we should restrict them in divisions. Since divisions aren't a thing for ranked, it seems like maybe it's fine.
That's probably not fine. It probably really sucks if there's like tier 10 Hildebrands in ranked.
I guess because there's only like 7 ships or 6 ships on a team. Maybe
I just think it's such a junk cruiser. And everybody tends to get spotted out in ranked because it's tighter confines.
Well, and you know where everybody's going to go.
I don't know how it would play, but I'm sure there's somebody who would be like, "No, it's the worst thing ever."
Oh, I'm sure.
And it may be. If they would tell you if you go into ranked and there's no, it's like, oh, this is a no CV season, but you can bring in hybrids. That kind of sucks.
Yeah. We had a comment. I don't remember who it was now, and I apologize. I missed it. It looks like it was Arsenal Geezer. He said, I'd like a mode where there's a possibility of no planes at all. I've seen that asked for a lot. I understand.
Clan battles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in clan battles, you could take a hybrid in a lot of cases.
You can take a Tony right now, but generally
that's like the only
10,
one.
They don't allow it.
Yeah. And it is called clan battles. That is probably your best place. And I know some people are like, but I don't play clan battles. Well, that's true. Yeah.
Would you play clan battles though if they gave you some coal for hitting ready?
Maybe. I mean,
if you don't play it now, what if they paid you to play it?
Would you play it fun? Yeah, that'd be fun.
Anyway, what's the other discussion card?
Yeah, we got a couple more. I think one we kind of already covered.
7 hours into our 8 vote.
Why did we allow this to happen? This was going pretty fast at first.
It's your show. I'm off work tomorrow. I don't care.
Okay. One of the questions we already covered, which was just speculating a little bit about like, what are we doing with hybrid? Like, why is Wargaming putting these in? That was like the first thing we talked about, which was, hey, we think they're just adding more variety of play. And so we talked, that was like the first conversation we had. So we're going to go to our other question, which is this one. And it's the question we always ask. Hey, if you had to take just 3, Skada, what 3 hybrids would you have in your port if the rest of them had to go in the bin? Chat, I don't want you to say they all need to go in the bin. I get it. That's funny. but what would you take, Scott, if you could pick 3? Pick one, and then I'll pick one. We'll go back and forth, I think, maybe.
Well, Komissar, because I like playing it. I don't care that it's a hybrid. I just like playing it as a cruiser. So that's my first pick.
Good. My first one is either Komissar or Chikuma. So I'm gonna go with Chikuma II. And I know that's kind of like a one percenter kind of thing because it's a really rare ship right now. Again, I hope it is more available here in the next coming couple of months. But again, it'll probably still be for steel. But Chikuma II is super great. It's a Tone with better torpedoes and smoke. Yes, please, I'll take it.
Yeah, since you said so, are we not going to say the same one? So like, I would say Chikuma
We don't know the
2.
rules. I mean,
I would say Chikuma 2, but because you did, I would say Tone because I've played Tone probably more than most hybrids.
yeah, Tone's
And
good.
I've never had like an amazing Tone game, but I enjoy playing it. I wish it had the stuff Chikuma 2 has, so I would have, but like it is a tier 8, so the matchmaking's a little different, and its planes aren't as toxically bad as some of the other planes. But I've always just liked it as a cruiser because it has super low concealment and the guns hit pretty hard, and I think it's fine to play.
Yeah. I think I think if I'm just gonna say what I think my 3 are at this point. I'd probably take Komissar, Chikuma II, and Tone, but because Chikuma II and Tone are basically the same, I might swap Tone out for Kearsarge. I mean, the same, but one's better. Maybe for Kearsarge, and I do like Louisiana, but I don't think I'd pick it in the top 3. So it's probably Kearsarge, Komissar, Chikuma II.
Okay, well, you did. We both took Komissar, so I guess it's okay to take the same thing.
Absolutely.
If we just presume that we both like Komissar, but we couldn't take the same things, then I would say Chikuma II Golden and Kearsarge B.
That's delightful.
Now you can do that. I can't. I don't have Chikuma II Golden.
That's
I
true.
just have Chikuma II. So we'll have to switch there. But
sure.
Because while I think Louisiana's good with its bombers, and I think they're easier to use. I've had better games in Kearsarge for whatever reason.
Kearsarge is a really strong battleship hybrid. It's a good one.
And even the stuff we pointed out that we don't like about it. And I suppose we're supposed to say, no, it's Hildebrand. But like, I don't want to ready up in a cruiser and play a CV.
I don't dislike Hildebrand. I played it the other day on stream, and those of you guys who watched, I was like, I don't know. I think it's okay. I should play it some more because it's so weird. And the reason it's weird is because it's a freaking carrier with big cruiser guns on it. I don't know. When I look for characterful, fun play, I'm looking at Chikuma II. I'm looking at Komissar, and maybe it is Kearsarge for that third. I think we've kind of settled in on the same 3. Is what it looks like. And there's not that many ships to choose from here, so that's cool. No.
I wish Halford was a better experience, but it's not.
Yeah.
Again, I could take Tone or I could take Chikuma II.
And Tone's amazing. I'm pained by not adding Tone as my 4th ship to the list because it is a good boat. I love it.
Okay, then Tone's our 4th ship on this list.
Oh yeah, there's no rules and we're in charge, so we can do whatever we want.
It's fine, and I don't have a problem saying, "Oh no, you know what? I've played Tone a fair amount, and like I said, I don't think I've ever had like a really really great game in it or anything. I've never had a problem with it. I've played it in competitive.
Yeah.
And I like it there too with its concealment and its spotting and what it does. And that sucks because I'm using it for what it is. It's a hybrid and I'm using it to spot. But again, like that's what they do. And you can bring them to gain that advantage over your enemy because that's how the mechanic works. And you can hate the mechanic, but you shouldn't hate the operator.
Yeah, be nice to that human being.
We do too much hating of the operator. When we really, it's the old, don't hate the player, hate the MF and game, right?
Hate the game.
Well,
hate the game.
You can not like the mechanic, but if somebody bought a Hildebrand and you don't like them because they bought a Hildebrand, that's a bummer. Like, we need just like, don't be that.
Rule number 1 on the Clyde Plays Discord is be cool, man. It's just be cool. And it's a kind of dumb phrase, but that concept is really important in the world here. We do need to just be cool with it. Be cool.
Unfortunately, a lot of realities in games like this is that things are sold to yuck others yum, right?
Yeah. That's a phrase we use a lot, isn't it?
Somebody to gain joy. For me to gain joy, you will have misery. Unfortunately, that's gaming in PvP games.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that goes on for sure. But it is kind of the thing that it is.
But do I think Hildebrand is a problem in regards to how it was rolled out and what it can do? Yeah. Unlike some of the other ones we talked about, I think it's not I think some of its mechanics are kind of borked, and I do think they should change the bomber reticle, and I think they should change the cooldown on those torpedo planes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll be really, because it's not a fun cruiser to play. Then you won't see it in matchmaking anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I think Hildebrand is it's problematic, but I wouldn't say that it's like a full-on problem. And I think the problematic nature will be minimized by the fact that I don't think in 6 months you're going to see 3 Hildebrands in any of your games, in any game mode that you play. Like,
I don't
it's just,
think you're gonna.
you know,
We'll find out in a few weeks if there's Hildebrands and Cots. Then let me know.
yeah, come back to me. We'll see. But I feel like it'll be banned before it even gets a chance to be tried in King of the Sea. But who knows? We'll keep our eye on that. They might have published the rules for that already. Maybe people already know. But well, that was a long conversation. We had 8 slides, 8 boats to look at, and we still managed to talk for 3 hours somehow.
We could have 2 boats and we just talk about it forever. We're terrible at this.
Yeah, but I don't know what people are doing here. This is terrible.
We unfortunately people like to watch Ship Show on YouTube, and they like to listen to it like a podcast, and I think that's great.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.
When I listen to podcasts, my podcast player lets me play them at like 1.2 or 1.3.
You can do that on YouTube. You can speed it up.
I highly recommend that. If you listen to this as a podcast, we'll just sound a little bit higher pitched.
Wingstead says intelligent discussion is why we go. Well, I hope that it comes off that way. Thanks, man. So folks, I thank you so much for watching Ship Show with us today, or listening to Ship Show, as the case may be. We appreciate you. We hope you had a great time with us. We hope that if you didn't know a lot about hybrids, you know a little bit more today, and that's good news. We hope that you'll think a little bit about hybrids as you go on into the future. Obviously, I think there's a lot to wonder about where they're going with this type of ship in the future. We're 10 ships in a game that has hundreds and hundreds, like 700 plus ships or something at this point. And so, what is it going to look like if there's 50 or 60 or 75 hybrids in the game in the future? What kinds of things do we expect them to do? Or what will we see? I think there's a lot of speculation that's available to us there. Again, as Skada pointed out earlier, please be nice to the human beings that you play against in World of Warships. The boats are designed to do a thing. It is part of World of Warships. Ascance actually said something interesting on the official stream the other day. I don't often get the chance to watch, but I fired it up while I was taking care of I was making some spreadsheets or something. And Ascance said something to the effect of, a lot of players have their own headcanon about what they think World of Warships is. And then he went off to say some nice things. I'm not going to say those. I'm going to take the first idea he had, which was there's a headcanon that players have about what is World of Warships. And then what is World of Warships for real. World of Warships for real has hybrids in it. It has aircraft carriers in it. It has submarines in it. That's part of the game. And it's okay that it's part of the game, or it's not. And if it's not okay for you, there are things you can do to experience those things less. One of them is log in less often. And I'm not trying to tell you to not play World of Warships. I want you to love the game and be here and be a part of it. I think it's a really fun game, but the game does have some of those elements in it. Luckily, there are modes that let us experience different flavors of the game. Hopefully there's one that works for you. Maybe you're a ranked player because you want to avoid some of those platforms. Maybe you play co-ops. We had a hashtag co-op for life from Dr. Asfan earlier. We have, maybe everyone is crossing their fingers and hoping we get asymmetric battles back. We've got mode shuffle right now. So find a mode that works best for you and let people have fun wherever they are playing World of Warships, in whatever mode, in whatever ship they're playing in. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you're watching this on YouTube later, we appreciate you. Go ahead on down to the comments, leave us some comments. Maybe you disagree with some of the stuff we said. Let's have a conversation about it. We try to keep those lines of communication flowing and keep it, civil, etc. And I thought this was really well done. Chat had a couple of comments that were bordering on mild to medium spice, which is perfectly fine. But thanks everybody for participating if you watched with us live. Skada, any final thoughts for the people?
Nope. Thanks everybody.
Sweet, man. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Goodbye.